Okay, I just took a long break. I exercised, I ate dinner, I showered, I watched the Potomac season finale, which I actually kind of enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to the reunion. Dove into some Paige and Craig stuff from Summer House and Southern Charm, and now I'm back with you, fine people, to talk about the remaining 400 pages of this Baldoni amended complaint. Let's see what we can get through tonight, okay? So we left off with these texts about Khaleesi and Game of Thrones, and the complaint continues. Difficult proved to be a gross understatement. Though Baldoni initially invited Lively to make changes to the script, Lively began altering the script daily. The frequency of Lively's revisions, sorry, this isn't funny, but it is. It's your worst nightmare, right? Like you encourage somebody to participate and then they over participate and you haven't laid down firm ground rules. So they're just like pep. I would imagine if they put this in that they have firm proof of every script change that Lively tried to give to Baldoni in this production. So it says it alarmed everybody, and they were scared that this interference would persist every day of the shoot and disrupt this carefully planned production schedule. And all of this production schedule was scheduled in advance, so they were worried. So then we cut to May 1st, 2023, and this is a text with one of the producers and Jamie Heath going back and forth. And the producer says, "Are you listening to this? She's fixing the script. I think redacted advice was actually wrong. Blake is now directing the movie. This is bad." Jamie Heath, the other producer, one of the heads of Wayfair and Justin Baldoni's best friend, says, "I'm listening. Talking through it is better than not seeing what's possible, as long as any decision is done with approval." The producer says, "Not for something that was already intimately planned. This will be every day of the shoot." Jamie writes back, "I know. I'm not sure what can be done, honestly, at this point in terms of," and then it cuts off something with Blake. More than a year later, it continues. During a red carpet interview at the New York film premiere, Lively stated the iconic rooftop scene. We've talked about this last week, but it was about this revelation all of a sudden that she revealed on the red carpet that Ryan Reynolds, her husband, wrote this. And the film's credited screenwriter, who is not Justin Baldoni, by the way, said, "So if I'm being told that Ryan wrote that, then great. How wonderful." She went on to acknowledge, "There were a few little flourishes that I did not write, and if those flourishes came from Ryan, I think that's wonderful." But this was the first time that Wayfarer heard this and Sony heard this. And remember, Ryan Reynolds was not a WGA writer. And remember, WGA, the Writers Guild, was on strike at the time. So really hinky here as well. Lively's remarks also alarmed Sony. We have an email that we went over last week from Sony saying, "Hey, we are not aware of any writing services rendered by Ryan Reynolds. Regardless what is being said publicly, this is not something we are aware of. We are learning about these allegations in real time." So that was an email. Oh, God, this is just a mess. So this is still during the pre-production phase then. Lively and Reynolds raised entirely false allegations of fat shaming against Baldoni, an accusation that, as evidence will show, was categorically false. Baldoni had been introduced to trainer Don, who became Baldoni's personal trainer, by Lively. Don directed Baldoni's preparation for the film role, including his nutrition and exercise, making special accommodations for Baldoni's back injury. Baldoni even paid to receive Don's meal delivery service. Wow. Anyways, we have some text messages from Dawn, and I think this is Dawn and Baldoni, and it's talking about, "I can get you a program this week," and he's like, "Sure, just got to New York City for the day." They're trying to call. He sends over a Dropbox of the program, and he writes, "Here you go, 4 things. 1, the jumps are to be low intensity. Let's sub the dead." Anyways, it's just about exercise, and this is really upsetting to me because I have bad knees. Anyways, Baldoni's like, "Amazing, can't wait to check it out. Thank you." On April 22nd, 2023, Baldoni privately reached out to Don, his personal trainer, to ask what Lively weighed. Her personal trainer to ask what Lively weighed. I think that was a mistake in the court documents, so that he could train his back muscles in preparation for a lift scene. This was important to avoid injury not only to Baldoni, who suffered from lifelong back injuries, bulging discs, chronic pain, but also to Lively if the lift could not be completed successfully and safely. Notwithstanding Lively's recent attempts to deny the existence of any such scene, it was only nixed at her insistence after having been planned and rehearsed. On April 25th, that's my birthday, April 25th, Lively summoned Baldoni to her penthouse purportedly to discuss the script. However, he was met by an angry Reynolds who screamed at Baldoni and accused him of fat shaming his wife. Quote, "How dare you fucking ask about my wife's weight? I'm Deadpool." He didn't say the Deadpool part. "What's wrong with you?" The confrontation by Reynolds and Lively. God, this happened on my birthday? God, that was so much more exciting than how I spent my birthday. Wow, the confrontation by Reynolds and Lively was so aggressive that Baldoni felt he had no choice but to offer repeated and unwarranted apologies for what was a good faith and reasonable question to ask of his trainer. Reynolds demanded Baldoni remove the scene entirely. Lively refused to perform the lift scene in the end, even after it was rehearsed with a stunt double. In her own complaint, Lively flat out lies about the absence of this scene by claiming, quote, the scene wasn't in the film. So if this is true, this is another just bold-faced lie that she knows she is lying, and that is very infuriating. The only reason the scene wasn't in the film is because Lively and Reynolds ensured it was taken out of the film, so I'm sure they have documentation of this. Accommodating Lively, Baldoni rewrote the scene with Lively, despite the fact that for creative reasons, this scene was important to him as a storyteller and director. Now, listen, this could be a little bit of a flourish from Baldoni's lawyer. Like, is it, was the lift that intense? Like, would it have made it a better film? Who knows? I don't know. It feels like a flourish. In fact, Lively had earlier expressed insecurity about her postpartum figure. Baldoni made attempts to reassure her. In this exchange, he stated as her director that, quote, anything you feel insecure about, we will talk through and get creative together and make you comfortable. I just don't want to stress you out about your body. It's the last thing you need. We have those texts. Blake Lively says, kicking ass, but it's still a ton of work with not a ton of time. What's the chance we can do body scenes at the end of the schedule? And he says, I'm sure you are. Honestly, there's 1 billion moving parts to the schedule right now. I just turned in the rewrite, and so they are hard at work. So much of it comes down to locations and the other cast availability. To be really honest, I have no clue. I want you to know you will look amazing. So it's just what we just read up there. He says, as soon as I have a rough schedule that's even remotely accurate, I'll share, and I'll make sure the team keeps this in mind as well. And then he did a heart emoji. Blake Lively has a text saying, thank you for your voice memo. It's deeply appreciated. You are everything you promised to be as a collaborator. Thank you. I know my job here, and this piece is in big part my job here. We both understand the assignment as actors in the roles, but also as producers and also as marketers. We understand artistically, yes, but we get what we need to do in all aspects for this movie commercially. As woke as we both are and work to be, this movie requires a certain aesthetic. It's part of the job that we both excitedly signed up for. I don't shy away from it because it's not problematic. It's the assignment. Like when someone is about to start an athletic event, it's their job to be in top shape. My husband and I both look at certain roles as athletic events. And this is one of them. It's not always a part of the job, but on this one it is, and that's great. As much as I'd love to not think about it, that would be irresponsible and also impossible because it's unrealistic to not acknowledge what I need to do. This is my job here, and I meet my responsibilities with extreme work ethic. God, this sounds just like a lot of talk. I look for a solution to achieve my high goals instead of lowering my goals. We all win when we're each firing at our highest capabilities, and you and I both are, and we will continue to. I just need as much time as possible because I just had my 4th baby. I mean, that is a lot of babies. That's hard on the body. I understand that you'll never personally know all the nuances of the challenges unless you live this physical moment in time. I'm in with the physical. By the way, Baldoni probably would have, if it was humanly possible, he would have offered to have 4 babies. It feels like he's that guy. But he says, having your understanding and support to help me pull this off is critical and very, very appreciated, not just in my experience, but also healing from experiences past. So thank you. We are going to kill it and be so fit. They have to Lola us to look less banging. And I think that's a movie term about lighting, maybe. Anyways, wild. It's got to be a lot of. I'm trying to be empathetic to Blake, and I'm just, there's a lot of ego obviously involved in that message. And it's frustrating because if you're using the examples of Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift, Taylor Swift prepared for the Eras Tour allegedly by running on a treadmill while singing through 3.5 hours of songs to make sure she was physically prepared. Ryan Reynolds in the gym all the time to do Deadpool on top of all the other stuff, and Blake Lively. I mean, all you have to say is, dude, I had 4 fucking kids. That's full-time job work itself. But I think she wants to consider herself artistically at that level. And, it probably just wasn't realistic to be able to pull off in the amount of time. And I'm sure that, I mean, by the way, I deal with so many body issues myself that it is so completely frustrating when your body does not respond to what you're trying to do to get in shape. Anyways, Lively then delivered an ultimatum. If Baldoni could not get on board with her work methods, he still had 2 weeks to recast her. Okay, wow, I wish we had that exchange. Implicit in this ultimatum was a threat to destroy Baldoni's reputation and career. As Lively well knew, Baldoni had worked hard, blah, 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 and she was weaponizing this against him. If Lively were to back out of the film, especially based on accusations of fat shaming, Baldoni's reputation and life's work would be left in tatters. He had no choice but to bow to Lively and Reynolds' demands. Concerns about Lively's undue influence over the film began to grow. This is even before the filming started, you guys. So it was all kosher, and then this fucking rooftop scene, and then everything all of a sudden, I feel like we're missing a piece of everything just falling to fucking shit. And anyways, we have April 20th, 2023, a text exchange between the producer and Jamie Heath. Producer says he cannot let her have opinions on everything. And Jamie's like, Blake? And the producer says, or she's going to be co-directing the film. And Jamie's like, yeah, we were talking about that a lot yesterday. The producer in all caps, exactly. This is why everyone is starting to lose it. We've been talking about the same thing for months. And Jamie says it's starting to get resolved. And the producer goes, no, it's not. This was the first time Lively openly moved to seize control of the film from Baldoni, but it would not be the last. So now the filming begins as Lively builds her takeover strategy. So this is their ball game, and this amended complaint saying this is a full-blown plan from Lively. So principal photography began in early May 2023. Lively continued to maintain what later appeared to be a facade of a close, caring relationship with Baldoni, even as she continued to make escalating demands for creative control. This is what's I'm so curious, and I'm sure there's some documentation at some point or somewhere in this documents, but if you are saying, I'm going to quit, and you have 2 weeks to recast, where is that? Because that seems like, how do you come back from that moment and keep up the facade then of a caring relationship? So they say by the time production began, they had worked together for months, and Lively expressed warm gratitude for her collaboration with Baldoni on the eve of filming. And Blake writes to Justin, this note means so much to me. I'm so excited to start tomorrow, but it's only one piece of the journey. We started months ago, and I'm grateful for all we've built so far. Thank you for caring so much and putting every bit of you into showing it. You have given so much of your time to fight for great, and that hasn't gone unappreciated or unseen for a moment. Let's do this shit. So a fairly positive message, but also, it is, I guess, a little domineering. Throughout the first filming period, Lively continued to share her open and unguarded thoughts on life and her character. She talked about wardrobe choices to make her character much sexier. And there's an email about her beanie. Like, the beanie will make me look sexier. Who cares about this? This is just actory bullshit. Lively continued to express her warm appreciation and respect for Baldoni. Acknowledged she could be difficult and critical of others, using the kind of language she herself would have alleged to be inappropriate. So on May 23rd of 2023, Justin Baldoni texts, I'm not going to tell you that you were amazing because you tease me for being so sentimental, but you were amazing today. Blake responds 2 hours later, 2 hours and 20 minutes later, thank you. I do appreciate it. I'm just a ball buster, but it means a lot to me. I care a great deal and always wanted to deliver. You were terrific. I'm proud of everything we did today, but really every day. And he just loved that statement and says, thank you. And I think they're prayer hand emojis. Who knows? Anyways, they also want to point out that Lively used the word ball buster in the 17-point list. Lively's use of the word ballbuster would certainly have made it on her 17-point list had it been Baldoni who said it. So that's a little dig in this complaint saying, oh, if Baldoni had said ballbuster, that would have been part of the 17-point complaint that Lively made everybody sign. Lively's intimate comfort with Baldoni continued as filming progressed in June of 2023. After the alleged harassment and uncomfortable situations allegedly occurred, she even invited Baldoni to her trailer to rehearse while pumping breast milk. Now, that was a part of Blake's complaint saying that, the producer and Baldoni were walking in at inappropriate times. So there's a email here, or is this an email or a text? Anyways, it says, I'm just pumping in my trailer if you want to work out our lines. Very normal actors running their lines, but this is also disproving potentially what Blake was saying of just, it's awkward when I'm pumping and they're just walking in. So they're just saying, yeah, she was completely comfortable to breastfeed in front of him, including when her husband was present. Oftentimes, Lively's baby nurse would come in mid-meeting with Lively's hungry baby, and Lively would breastfeed openly and without hesitation. On every occasion, Baldoni averted his eyes from Lively's chest, either maintaining eye... Okay, so, yeah. They laughed deliriously during late-night writing sessions. All of these events took place after the alleged sexual harassment. Lively's accusations seemed to come out of the blue. She even knew his tea order. And there was an exchange that he knows that... that Justin likes hot matcha. Okay, good to know. And says, and do you know what Brandon likes? And I think that's Brandon Sklenar, the other actor in the film. Lively herself set the tone for personal discussions on set, including what language was acceptable. For example, on one occasion, while filming a restaurant scene, Lively sat on the floor in painfully expensive shoes while discussing with a group of male cast and crew how sexy her shoes were. Lively had no issue using the word sexy herself, but apparently took note both times Baldoni said the word in her presence. Okay, yeah. I guess you're building your case. Though she was loose and relaxed in her speech on set, she was increasingly stringent in the demands she imposed on the production. She rewrote her own dialogue constantly and took it upon herself to make unilateral changes to other characters' lines, effectively rewriting the script day by day. Now, on a set, they have different color pages for revisions and stuff like that. So if this is true, I'm sure they will have these revisions and these changes. And that was probably heavily documented if true. But Blake, they're saying she knows that this stuff causes delays, all the changes. During the labor strikes, Lively moves to seize absolute power. On May 2nd, 2023, the Writers Guild of America went on strike. So production on the film halted temporarily on June 14th due to the WGA picketing. The next day, the production was notified that the WGA had agreed to not picket their set, allowing production to continue, but Lively was already gone and refused to return to the production immediately. Wayfair reworked the shooting schedule at great expense to film the scenes with the younger versions of the characters instead of footage requiring Lively. On June 27th, 2023, production shut down entirely for the pendency of the strike. The SAG-AFTRA strike, which is the actors union, soon followed, beginning on July 14th, 2023. So that's very interesting as well. So May 2nd, the Writers Guild went on strike. Now, they were already supposed to have a complete script. So there would be no, allegedly you would think, okay, they can still film because this is already an approved script. But if Lively was changing all of these things, it's a little hazy. But then Lively just, I guess, left and didn't come back. They reworked the schedule in June 14th, so June 15th. And then on June 27th, the production shut down entirely for the strike. And then July 14th, the SAG strike started. To make the most of time during the strike, Baldoni began editing the footage that had been captured to date, starting the director's process of turning footage into film. I wonder if there's documentation with them trying to reach out to Lively during this period of time. Lively expressed excitement over returning to shoot in the fall in New York, making no mention of any discomfort or harassment that would be brought up only later after months of being apart on the day the strikes ended. Both before and during the strikes, Lively's eager involvement in the production took on a more insistent and manipulative tone as she asked for access to the dailies. The dailies, you guys, are just an assemblage of scenes that they shot that day. And you have them at the end of the day. Usually the production people will watch what they did that day. They'll be like, okay, we got this. Oh, that's great right there. Ooh, we might need to reshoot that kind of stuff. But they're saying this is inappropriate and unorthodox for an actor to do this. And we have this email that was on June 13th. June 13th. But they're saying she was still on set. She left on June 15th. So this is before she left. But it says, hey, would you mind giving me access to the dailies? And I'm curious which takes you liked of the scenes you showed. My manager flew out to visit set and leaves tomorrow a.m. He heard all about it from blank, and I'd love to show him. I appreciate you may be too slammed right now to make this happen, but maybe someone else can facilitate. Thanks so much! ! So yeah, she's like digging in. Blake Lively to Justin Baldoni on July 19th, so this is into the strike, says, hey, I hope you and your family are well. I watched the selects you sent, which meant he sent certain dailies to her. And she says, so great. I was so happy and energized. Such solid work from everyone on and off camera. It was really cool to see. We were working so quickly. There was never the time to look back. So it was nice to revisit from an audience's perspective. Please let me know who to reach out to get access to the full gallery of dailies. I'm so looking forward to seeing all we have in the can. And of course, any scenes you cut together, I'd love to see. Hope you're having a good, like, have a bitchin' summer. She says, hope you're having a good summer and hopefully a good edit. Will your assembly be done soon? And then she X, XO, but just X. So it is interesting. If you are filing this complaint about harassment, or that's even the reality of what happened, I don't know. You want to believe everything a woman says, but this seems like so. I mean, it seems obviously she's a little pushy and asking for things that most actors do not have the power to ask for. But she is at a certain point in her career, so you can make an argument she's trying to protect herself. But I'm not sensing an overall tension from this. But maybe she's just, I don't know. It's wild. Anyways. So Wayfarer, Baldoni, and another producer on the film strategized about how to respond to Lively, which they said had become a common practice. The text exchange below demonstrates adamant objections to giving Lively the dailies. It was an inappropriate overreach, but there was a real concern that a simple ask would turn into a complete takeover, and they rightly feared doing this. And this is Justin Baldoni giving a screenshot of Blake asking for these dailies, and he writes thoughts, and the producers say, I'd say no, but check her contract first, LOL. And then Jamie Heath says, I was waiting for blank to respond first, and then did some emoji that I can't make it out. It's an absolutely no for me as well. Respectfully, not sure the best way to respond being how delicate it is. And the producer says, I think you can either not respond until tomorrow. And the producer says, I think you respond to tomorrow. I think you can either not respond until tomorrow, or say you need to talk to the team, or just say no, you're not comfortable with it. And Jamie says, maybe we can let this be a Sony decision, the distributor of the film, and you can respond with that for now. And Justin Baldoni says, thank you. Spoke to blank 2, the redacted 2. I think I'm just going to say yes and send her a playlist of a bunch of good takes from different scenes that last for 3 or 4 days. And then redacted said no, LOL. Producer writes, we all said no, and you're going to send ? And Justin says, no, she liked the idea of a playlist, no to access to all dailies. I wasn't clear in text. And the producer says, okay, copy, makes sense. Justin Baldoni says, basically, I'll send her a playlist of what I showed her agent. And then if or when she responds and says, can you send me everything? That's what I'll say. I'm not comfortable with that, as I haven't even seen everything. Redacted believes that she will then start to edit the movie and tell me which takes to use if she has access to everything. Producer says, yeah, I agree with that. And Baldoni says, this is exactly how the writing process started. She asked if it was okay if she could take a pass at some dialogue tweaks on the rooftop scene. He then writes, just talk to Blake lively. She's in very good spirits and seems happy about this. Very nice conversation. The producer says, good, ! Great, ! Great to hear. Okay, so I do want to point out also, this speaks to, oh, it's intense. And they're like, hey, she's in a good mood. They're all like, great. Because I think Hollywood is full of these extreme types of people that they're moods can shift on a dime, and they're like, okay, great, if she's happy, we're good. So they are looking over their shoulder, but they're still like, okay, everything's good, we can still work, perfect. Hollywood is just full of extreme personalities. So after consulting internally as how to respond, Baldoni pushed back, explaining that it was much too early in the editing process to share much footage. And he writes to her, hi, sorry for the slow response. Yes, family is good. Brutal being away for so long and happy we are finally together. Lots happening, all good things overall. Had to hire new editors who I adore. They're going through everything now. I'm so happy why did they have to hire new editors? Anyways, I'm so happy you felt energized by what you saw. Your performance is really beautiful, stunning actually. Regarding the dailies, obviously I want your input. That's why I sent the 5-hour playlist. But at this point, it's too early for me to share all the dailies. I start my cut in early August, given the new editors. He is the director, and still going through the rest myself, also figuring out our shooting plan as I have to cut and combine and find ways to scale down for budget, because they're over budget. Once I am physically in the edit and have touched scenes myself, I'd love to share with you. I hope you enjoy this time off with your family. Talk soon. So at that point, Lively reluctantly paid nominal lip service to the notion that Baldoni, the film's director, was entitled to the time and space needed for his directorial cut but continued to push. This is Lively to Baldoni. I don't want to infringe on your time with your cut, of course. Don't feel the need to send me cut scenes. I was just excited to see. Regarding the dailies, none of the producers have had access to the dailies. It's just you? Question mark. Sorry. I mean, it is getting redonkulous. Baldoni shared limited scenes with Lively, feeling uncomfortable all the while, yet he already knew that he had to bow to Lively's demands in order to get out the film and its powerful message. Okay. Finally, he put his foot down, sending Lively one final scene, and then telling her he would not be sending any more cuts until it was finished in the editorial process. He should have put this foot down fucking at the very beginning, but he was trying to be Mr. Nice Guy. Anyways, he says, sorry, back-to-back meetings. All good. Love the excitement, and I'm excited to show you when the time is right. No, not just me. Redacted and Jamie have access to dailies, but not assemblies or cuts. And then there's a message. So that was on July 20th. And then the next message they show is August 25th. And it says, happy birthday, Blake. Coincidentally, today is the last day of my edit as we are closing the room until we shoot again. It's been he loves saying wildly. It's been wildly successful, and I'm so happy. You are so fantastic in the film. I'm sending you over one of my favorite sections. I won't be posting or sending anything to anyone after this, but I'm excited to show you more in person when we come back. Please watch before Sunday as all Pix accounts so these are accounts where you share footage, right? These are protected accounts. All Pix accounts get shut down on Monday until we are back up. Can't wait to hear what you think. Have an amazing day. XX. The Writers Guild strike ended September 21st, 7th. The SAG strike ended November 9th. Lively and her lawyers had been busy devising other plans during the strike. I feel like this is like Blake's turn to be like, I bet you're wondering how we got here. Like, we need to put all of these complaints together in one gigantic he said, she said. The same day that the SAG-AFTRA strike ended, Baldoni, the studios, and producers were eager to resume production. Instead, they were met with an email from Lively's lawyer. This is the 17-point list of non-negotiable conditions that must be met before Lively would return to work. And this is wild. So this is November 9th, 2:14 p.m. to the Wayfarer team. And it says, listen, with the tentative, it doesn't say listen, but it says, with the tentative resolution of the SAG-AFTRA strike, we are writing to address how to handle a return to the set. It is no surprise to the film's producers that the experience of shooting the film has been deeply concerning on many levels. The complaints of our client and others, says others, have been repeatedly conveyed and well documented throughout pre-production and photography. While we reserve all legal rights at this stage, our client is willing to forego a more formal HR process in favor of everyone returning to work and finishing the film as long as the set is safe moving forward. In order for our client to feel safe returning to production, we are attaching a list of protections that will need to be guaranteed and observed by the film's producers. If the production is unwilling to accept or uphold these protections, our client is prepared to pursue her full legal rights and remedies. This letter is not intended to constitute a full statement of all the facts and circumstances relating to this matter. It is not intended to be, nor it should be construed as a waiver, release, or relinquishment of any of our client's rights or remedies, legal or equitable, all of which are hereby expressly reserved. So this is November 9th, 2023. Okay. So both Wayfarer and Sony attempted to revise the document to make it factually accurate, being that their representation of set culture was inaccurate, and sent comments through Wayfarer's attorney, who incorporated Sony's notes, but Lively's counsel response made it clear that the list was not open for negotiations. Because this is another one from Blake's team to Wayfarer saying, the list we provided was not intended as a starting point for a negotiation. Rather, it is a set of protections that need to be in place in order for our client to return to work. Please let us know as soon as possible whether Wayfarer will agree to accept all of the protections included in our original communication, including without limitation to number 11 and number 12 with the following additional clarifications. Number 14, in addition to the stunt double, Wayfarer to engage Blake Lively approved body doubles for both characters for all simulated sex scenes. Number 15, this requirement applies to any future filming as well to any footage that has already been shot. Number 16, we can limit this requirement to scenes involving nudity, partial nudity, and or simulated sex. I've watched the movie. Trying to remember. I'm usually pretty good when I see nudity. I'm like, whoa, nudity. I didn't see tons of I don't remember tons, but okay. Anyways, it was clear that Wayfair would have to sign this document as is, despite the falsity of its insinuations. The alternative was to lose millions of dollars, cost hundreds of people their jobs after they had been out of work for months due to the strikes, and destroy their relationship with Sony. Nonetheless, the demand. See, this is where it gets like really. This is very serious. So at this point, Sony is aware. So that relationship probably is already tenuous at best. But if they, how do you, if this 17 point, because we'll go through the points. Point one was intimacy coordinator. And they argue that an intimacy, in this document says an intimacy coordinator had already been engaged during the first half of the production. So Wayfair took no issue with the request itself, despite both Lively and her attorney knowingly insinuating there was not one. So they're saying, listen, the first one was the intimacy coordinator that helps with intimate scenes, right? It's a newer thing in Hollywood in the last decade about, choreographing these scenes. Now, I just watched that film, Anora, that's up for a bunch of Oscars, and there was no intimacy coordinator on that set, but all of the actors approved. And there is a lot of sex and nudity in that movie, Anora, which I do recommend, but it's long and it's, a lot of nudity. So they're saying, okay, well, this is already done. They already know there is an intimacy coordinator. But at the same time, when if this was an alleged takeover, I don't know why they didn't say, well, this is crazy town. Like, okay, anyways, moving on. Although the presence of an intimacy coordinator is not a Screen Actors Guild rule, but rather a recommendation, Baldoni was eager to engage one from start to ensure talent, himself included, felt safe during the intimate scenes. It was also important to him that the intimacy coordinator be a woman to help craft sex scenes that would speak to the mostly female audience of the book, i.e. be written from the female gaze, a fact Lively later mocked in both the complaint and her CRD complaint. Given both Lively and Reynolds' firsthand knowledge of these facts, Lively's insistence in her November 9th, 2023 return to production demands on the constant presence of an intimacy coordinator was baffling. However, because Wayfair had already engaged an intimacy coordinator and had no issue with the request, anyways, they're saying, okay, they acquiesced. This is, they'll approve this one. Point two, limiting review of intimate scene footage to those with essential business reasons. So they're saying this is already a standard practice in the film industry and a practice on the film set. They agreed to this. So they're like, yeah, we agree with this one. Totally. But I don't know, but also they realize that Blake's saying the point of this is that there wasn't this, and that's the complaint. But they're like, no, it's there, so we agree to that. But they said, despite having filmed for over a month, and despite, this is only a month of filming, despite having been provided a nudity writer, which is, a part of the contract, and the opportunity to negotiate, finalize, and sign, Lively had never asked for a closed set. Closed set means only the essential people, the cameraman, the sound person, just very tight. There's no visitors that day, no craft service. It is just the people shooting and the audio and the video. However, production had always adhered to this and had no problem agreeing to this demand. The demand as written suggests nude or intimate scenes were filmed with non-essential personnel present. Later in her complaint, Lively alleges that during a scene, the birthing scene, she was mostly nude with her legs spread wide in stirrups and only a small piece of fabric covering her genitalia, and that there were non-essential persons present. This allegation is knowingly false. To begin with, to describe Lively as mostly nude and naked from below the chest down is dishonest. She was wearing black briefs and a pregnancy suit that covered her midsection, and her top was covered by a hospital gown. Her legal complaint deliberately suggests she was wearing a small piece of nude fabric glued around her genitalia by stating this is generally what female actors use to provide some minimal privacy without disturbing the shot. Leaving the reader to believe Lively was only wearing this small fabric, Lively was aware of this birthing scene as she was heavily involved in rewriting the script and gave creative input for this specific scene, even against the director's creative vision. So they're saying the film footage also speaks against this. It was not chaotic. The film's financier, that the Lively was saying, the film's financier flew in to be present for this scene. And they're like, he was not even on set during the filming of that scene. He arrived later, merely stopping by for a brief moment because he had a busy schedule. And, so it was just a brief moment. Point three, no spontaneous improvisation of scenes involving physical touching, simulated sex, or nudity, which must be choreographed with intimacy coordinator. They're saying it was Lively who refused to meet with the intimacy coordinator to plan out the scenes. And they actually have a text exchange that Justin to Blake saying, just hired an intimacy coordinator who I love. We'll set you up to meet FaceTime with her next week for intro. And Blake writes to Justin, I feel good. I can meet her when we start. Smiley face. Thank you, though. And Justin has sent this to the female producer on the set and goes, just FYI, just wanted to tell you about this. Seems like she doesn't want to meet the intimacy coordinator until we start, which may mess up the workflow, but I can still meet with her, of course. And the female producer says, that's fine if she doesn't want to meet her now. You'll just have to walk her through what you and the intimacy coordinator are thinking. But they don't have a date and time on this. So, I guess they could argue, oh, this was made up afterwards, but, it's saying, hey, look, I have proof that this Blake was very aware of this. It's basically just saying like she was very comfortable, even like the notes, like she would suggest these things. Um, Gosh, this is a mess. Ugh. Sorry, I'm rereading some of this stuff, and it is just so overwhelmingly damning towards Lively. But it's saying like, listen, Lively was directing him during some of these scenes and joking and breaking character, and it was Lively who engaged in unchoreographed kissing scenes. One scene, again captured on camera, exhibits Lively pulling Baldoni in to kiss her. It is clear Lively was initiating unchoreographed kissing. In one take, she pulled Baldoni in and kissed him once, and another twice, and the number of kisses entirely initiated by Lively changed at her whim. Baldoni is a professional actor who, among other roles, played the lead's love interest in television's Jane the Virgin for 5 years, 100 episodes, is like most actors accustomed to rehearsing or without needing permission while in character. Oh my God, you guys. As a former actor, even though I will work, if somebody wants to hire me, I'll totally work again. But when I'd be in acting class, my teacher would always want to do kissing scenes. It felt like there was like one a month, and I would always skip that class because I was so nervous. I can't. I would get so nervous at kissing scenes because it just makes me really nervous, and you're just like, oh, this is so awkward. And I would just skip. I would just skip class. It would be kissing scene. I'm not coming, or like it was too nerve wracking. So this is like the insanity of an actor is you have to pretend to be in love with this person or in lust with this person, and it's just so uncomfortable because you can't imagine what the other actor is thinking and what it's just a mess. Lively also complains that there was inappropriate and improvised kissing during the first period of filming before the strike break, but in fact the only 2 kissing scenes filmed during the initial filming period were both scenes that included kisses as written in the script. These kissing scenes were not improvised. Point 4, no physical touching of Lively, including hugging or comments on her physical appearance except in connection with the character and or scene work, not as to Lively personally. To be clear, none of the named parties touch Lively when not in character, especially not in the manner suggested. So they're saying, for example, her allegation that Baldoni inappropriately called her sexy was in fact a reference to a scene where everyone was wearing onesies, but Lively was covering her onesie with a big coat. Baldoni, her director, asked that she take off the big coat so that her onesie would be visible in the scene. Baldoni said it will be hot, as it was 90 degrees in the small bar with no air conditioning. Lively mischaracterizes this in her complaint as Baldoni referring to her personally as hot, using the slang meaning of the term. Given that Lively herself had earlier expressed to him that she wanted her character's wardrobe to be sexier, Baldoni encouraged her to accept direction by saying it's sexy, meaning that without the big coat, the wardrobe was sexier. A big coat. We're arguing about a big coat. She was unable to take the direction, later alleging his behavior was inappropriate, regarding her self-chosen wardrobe, stating, that's not what I'm going for. Baldoni, recognizing that she may have taken his direction personally and appeared offended, he apologized more than once. His statements were immediately followed by his gesture that she had something in her teeth and a request for someone on the set to get her a toothpick. This exchange, all of which is captured on camera, demonstrates how ludicrous and deliberately malicious Lively's allegations are. Yes, or is it just Blake Lively is just not tethered to the earth? Is it that she truly? That's the thing. I'm like, I don't mean to keep trying to give her outs, but like, is she just truly not tethered to the earth? And she just lives a different existence than a lot of us, that she just takes everything as like, everybody's trying to hit on me. I don't know. I'm trying to think of ways, other than just her purposely trying to take this film over. And then also, being able to see this person face to face, knowing that, you were trying to take, I don't know, it just seems so cold-hearted. While on the one hand, Lively accuses Baldoni of making comments about her appearance, on the other, she made fun of aspects of Baldoni's appearance, including the size of his nose, something Baldoni has publicly expressed insecurities about and has discussed on an episode of his podcast, Man Enough, glad we got a podcast plug in here, exploring the topic of body dysmorphia. Lively's comments about Baldoni's nose, advising him to get a nose job, was captured on camera. Baldoni, rather than adding it to a list of grievances, brushed it off and moved on with the scene. I love the shade in the complaint. Instead of adding it to a list of grievances, he just moved on with the scene. Baldoni's sincere dedication to what he has repeatedly described as holding himself accountable as a man was being used against him, just as Lively is attempting to do now, to characterize his sensitivity to her personal reaction to his creative direction, which was not only innocuous but well-intended, is malicious. To then share this knowingly false characterization with the New York Times for publication months before filing any formal complaint, then waiting nearly 2 weeks to file the complaint with this court, thus depriving him the opportunity to engage in discovery before the damage is done, is inexcusable. That is not great. Point 5, no discussion of personal experiences with sex or nudity, including as it relates to conduct with spouses or others. When Baldoni was faced with this demand, he was utterly confused. By the time Lively and Baldoni were developing their intimate scenes together, they had developed a friendly relationship and were communicating often over text messages. Lively felt comfortable expressing herself and appeared to do so freely. She took photos of Baldoni holding and comforting her newborn in her home. Oh my gosh, I hope that's evidence. Baldoni filmed her uncontrollably laughing with him as they rehearsed late into the evening. Often delirious with exhaustion, nothing about their interactions suggested Lively was uncomfortable around Baldoni. Though confused by this demand and denied the opportunity to revise these demands, Wayfarer had no choice but to sign the document and did so, knowing no such instances had occurred. Okay, so right now they have a month of filming in the can with Blake Lively. I'm trying to think. Obviously, it sets everything back if they just fire Lively at this point. And it is just a big legal mess. I'm trying to think in my head. So Wayfair, are they truly having no choice but to sign this document? And how do you then get back to work on the film? Later, Lively references in her complaint instances that were shockingly mischaracterized and in no way inappropriate or unprofessional. I love the whole sentiment of this whole amended complaint is, we got the time. You know, like when everybody's like, well, I had the time today. This is, we had the time. Like, it goes into such detail. For example, in a response to a proposal from the intimacy coordinator that Baldoni's character Ryle not orgasm after he satisfied Lily, Lively remarked, quote, "I'd be mortified if that happened to me," personalizing the character's sexual act. Baldoni, following Lively's lead in what he understood to be an attempt to connect with and develop their characters, remarked that, quote, "Those have been some of the most beautiful moments between himself and his wife." Listen, I'm a sixth grader at heart still. Then they moved on. In another instance, as Lively and Baldoni were developing their scenes, Lively said, "I don't want it to look like porn," and then offered up that she had never seen porn in her life. A very personal fact. Baldoni complimented her and said, "That's wonderful." Because unfortunately he was first exposed to it when he was 10 years old and struggled with a porn addiction for a period of his life. He writes openly about this in both his books, Boys Will Be Human, written for young boys, and Man Enough, written for men. Love the plugs for the books. I feel like it's Heather Gay with, I wrote a book. No, I'm joking. Addressing pornography as a societal problem. Anyone who knows or has done any research on Baldoni would have knowledge of this, and it can in no way be characterized as inappropriate, especially after opening the door to the discussion by disclosing something highly personal. At every turn, Baldoni was entrapped. Moreover, Jamie Heath, the producer, who had nothing to do with this exchange and has never had a porn addiction or even mentioned porn in Lively's presence, was falsely and knowingly lumped into this accusation. Lively continued with the false suggestion that she was shown pornography or naked images of Heath's wife on set. This is a very specific part of Blake's complaint. This allegation knowingly and maliciously misrepresents an instance when, in connection with the birthing scene, Heath, at the director's request, attempted to show Lively a video that demonstrated the director's vision for the scene. The video, which ultimately was not shown to Lively, even though she stated she'd like to see it later as she was eating, yeah, you don't want to see that while you're eating, is by all accounts beautiful. I mean, but still, it's so personal that I'm glad it shouldn't have been. If you're the producer and, also that's your wife, I mean, I get the sentiment, but yeah, you shouldn't maybe have even made the suggestion. I mean, that's her work as an actor. I don't know. anyways, this was like a natural home birth. And they wanted to just like, this was kind of what they were going for, this beautiful moment. But he was offended that, this naked photo or worse porn, like, that this is considered porn. Are you kidding me? Um, so they're just saying these exchanges were all distorted in Blake's list of demands to come back to the set. Point six, no one to enter Lively's trailer while she was undressed. This is just that whole breastfeeding thing, even though we have, other things earlier of like, hey, come in, I'm just breastfeeding. That's another one. And then where are we at here? Point seven, no filming nude or sex scenes except per nudity rider, and no use of prior nude scenes without nudity rider. The Screen Actors Guild states that producers must provide actors at least 48 hours notice before call time to review and negotiate a nudity rider. And this is a nudity rider is approved by SAG-AFTRA. The intimacy coordinator working on the production was provided to Lively's counsel on May 8th, 2023. Wayfarer's attorney communicated that they would like it signed by May 11th and requested that they send any notes that they may have on May 12th. Lively's attorneys finally responded they were reviewing the nudity rider and would come back with notes. Their focus then shifted to ensuring Lively's fee was deposited in escrow, and they became fixated on that, her fee for the film. Ultimately, despite constant pursuit, it became clear that Lively had no intention of signing the nudity rider or her contract at that time. So Blake did not sign her contract. Months later, the demand for a nudity rider became a part of the 17 demands, even though they were trying. So they're saying we have things going back with her team about trying to get this and her contract shot. And now she's using it in this 17-point complaint. Point eight, Lively entitled to personal representative on set. Wayfarer had no objection to this. Point nine, notice of COVID-19 exposure. On April 26, 2023, weeks before principal photography of the film commenced, Wayfarer sent crew a COVID-19 protocol update informing them that the AMPTP, the return to work agreement, expires on May 12th. And as such, there would be no pre-employment testing and no mask requirements after May 12th. Although the return to work agreement that established COVID protocols expanded prior to the start of principal photography and no testing or masking was required, Wayfarer agreed to inform Lively if production became aware that she was exposed to COVID. Now, this was a thing that, movies, this is like, this industry has been hit so hard because of, for so many reasons, runaway production, COVID, but I shot an episode of Chicago Med, the NBC show, and it was the week that COVID started. And I was in Chicago and I had these like gnarly leg prosthetics on that were like bubbling and oozing. And I remember the announcement on set that day was there is somebody in this soundstage area has contracted COVID, and they literally like shut down the set. And I flew back to Los Angeles, went back to my job, and then by the end of that week, we had to shut down our business and then cut to years later. It was really, really a wild time that we all went through. But I just remember that of like, wait, what? Like you had heard about COVID, like this mysterious illness, and then all of a sudden it was like a couple people had it, and then all of a sudden it popped up in this Chicago soundstage, and they were still supposed to shoot another episode of the season, and then I think that became their season finale. And they had to cut a bunch. It was just really weird and really scary because I was like, what do we have it? And they didn't have testing for it back then. Like they didn't really know what it was. And it was just wild. The world shut down. Anyways, point 10 of this is no retaliation for requests. While Wayfarer in no way conceded that Lively's demands amounted to a report of genuine sexual misconduct, Wayfarer had no interest in retaliated against Lively for making these demands. Their only desire was to make a great movie. In the interest of maintaining a professional, productive atmosphere on set, they agreed to meet all of her demands, including a broadly defined statement that they would not retaliate in any manner, including sarcasm was a part of this. Wayfarer agreed, though later it became clear that Lively would consider any future effort to push back against her demands with respect to the production as unacceptable retaliation. On information and belief, this demand was included to safeguard Lively not from retaliation, but to secure her place as leader of the film, with the threat of claims that retaliation if Wayfarer or Baldoni pushed back. And this was a big part of Blake's complaint, saying, listen, the fucking PR smear campaign is retaliation. That's what this is, and we agreed to the 17-point complaint. So depending on how you look at it, it's really real devious on her part, or this is a mess. That's what this pod should just be titled. This is a mess. The retaliation. And I will say too, is that, listen, Hollywood and these producers and studios and all that, I'm not talking about Wayfair and Sony in particular, but they ain't angels. None of these people are angels. There are probably a lot of things that we are not seeing where they're calling her a bitch and all of this shit. Like, truly, this is a nightmare, and she is being a nightmare, and they probably spoke of her as such. Hollywood is not a touchy-feely, I mean, it is touchy-feely in a very bad way, but it is not a, sunshine and roses industry. It is hardcore. So, I just think that they're not, I don't want to say they're not as innocent, but I'm just saying they're not as naive as sometimes this paints them. Point 11, mutually agreed Sony representative required on set. Wayfair agreed to the concept of having a representative on set whenever Lively was on set, though it gently pushed back on the idea that it always be Ange Giannetti, who might occasionally have other pressing work obligations. Point 12, additionally, Lively approved producer to be hired to supervise filming. Wayfair pointed out that the additional expense and the contractual implications of hiring an additional producer would have detrimental effects on the production. In the end, Wayfair agreed, as it would cost production more if Lively refused to return to work. Todd Black, suggested by Sony and approved by Lively, was ultimately brought on as an additional producer. Now, Todd Black, if I'm not mistaken, Todd Black... He is a producer and an actor known for Antoine Fisher, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and The Great Debaters. He was the producer on those films, also the producer of Will Smith's 7 Pounds. Really, The Equalizer 3, has a very well-respected career. So that was the producer that was brought on. I wonder how much that cost. Point 13, existing third-party producers empowered to actively supervise the production. While disagreeing with the suggestion that any producer did not have appropriate and customary authority to actively supervise the production in their capacity as producer, Wayfair agreed to this term. Any third-party producer was already empowered to do so. I mean, I guess they really are behind the gun because it just that original, that email says this is not a negotiation. Point 14, Wayfair to use Lively approved body and stunt doubles for intimate and sexual violence scenes. Despite not requesting this at the contract negotiation phase, Lively's pre-approved stunt and body doubles were fully acceptable to Wayfair, and so they agreed. I mean, this to me is on Lively and her team that they did not put this in her contract to begin with. Point 15, no filming nude or sex scenes of any actor's portrayal of Lily except per nudity rider. So this is about the young Lily Bloom in this, who I think spoke very highly of Justin Baldoni, if I'm not mistaken, but this is to stand up for the young Lily. Point 16, all day players must be hired through talent agencies, not personal connections. So day player roles are, just somebody that has a couple of lines or one scene, and they're only hired for one day, only contracted for one day. And one of Baldoni's, friends or acquaintances played the obstetrician. Baldoni's casting an experienced actor who happens to be a friend is no different than casting Lively's sister, who was cast because she is Lively's sister. So they're saying this is completely ridiculous. And also the friend that Baldoni cast is an MFA actor from UCLA. He's a Shakespearean trained actor. So it wasn't just some fly-by-night like, hey, buddy, you're my fishing pal. You ever try to act in a film? I'm directing one. Why don't you come look at old Blake Lively's coochie? Like, no, it wasn't like that at all, this document states. Lively's current complaint states she was alarmed when Baldoni introduced him as a friend and allowed him to play this intimate role in which the actor's face and hands were in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia, categorizing the experience as invasive and humiliating. It is Lively's suggestion that a highly trained and experienced actor would have an unseemly interest in being in close proximity to her nearly nude genitalia. To reiterate. Sorry, guys, I'm stroking out at this point. Lively knowingly made a false statement that only a small piece, there's going back to that small piece of fabric. Once again, though, Wayfair agreed despite being wholly offended by this accusation. You know who I'd be pissed if I was one of Baldoni's actor friends that hadn't worked in a while, and he was like, hey, buddy, do you want to come be a 2-line part as a barista and it ends with us? You know, like, you've always been there for me. I'll give you a two, you know, like, because that happens a lot in Hollywood. I've gotten parts in the past from friends, or I mean, I've had an audition, but I've gotten the audition through a friend. And, you know, like, imagine all of a sudden having your part yanked. Baldoni, you know, you're like, oh shit, I would have made my health insurance this year if I got that role. Point 17, all hands meeting before production resumes. Wayfarer understood this request to be sincere offer to meet and discuss. This is what I was caught up on Lively's complaint, because I was like, if these 17 points are true and they had this meeting and everybody signed off on it, then I was firmly in Blake Lively's camp. Because I was like, how do you get past this 17 point complaint and this meeting, this all hands on deck meeting? How do you get past that? You're all agreeing that this stuff happened to get Blake to, so to me, it was a no-brainer that Baldoni and Wayfarer were at fault. And this was in late December that I felt this way. So in this spirit, Wayfarer readily agreed, believing that an opportunity to discuss concerns openly and to plan resuming production would be welcome. As will be established, Wayfarer's good faith belief could not have been farther from the truth behind this demand. Lively, with the support of her husband, used this demand to justify an ambush of Baldoni and Heath on the eve of the first day of filming in phase 2 of production. Importantly, Sony, who also had a representative on set, found the 17 requests confusing as well. Before returning to production, Lively had even more script notes and changes beyond what was already performed during phase 1 of production. In the face of these terrifying and false accusations couched as demands, I mean, I would be completely fucking freaked out if I was Baldoni. Like, if this is so, I mean, how do you even begin to go back to set? Baldoni realized he needed to cede control of the script to Lively as she wished. I would love to see emails between Heath and the other producer and Baldoni at this point. His film would be taken from him by threats and coercion, and there was nothing to be done about it. In an email to his team containing the notes on his revised script, he expressed his sadness and frustration over Lively's takeover of the film that they spent years developing, writing, and funding. Having no energy left to fight, he sadly declared, quote, he was waving the white flag and submitting and would give Lively 98% of what she wants. He also expressed serious concern over how to handle the intimacy scenes given the accusations inherent in Lively's return to production demands. Baldoni asked his producing partners to guide him, as he was rightfully afraid of the, quote, risk that something innocuous or not to Lively's standards would very likely be used against him, as it already had. Continuing that, quote, creativity is impossible in an environment shrouded by fear. By now, we all know what she is capable of. Baldoni's fear of Lively's retaliation was palpable, but he was determined to get the film to the finish line for everyone involved. Wow. A producer thanked Baldoni for his thoughtful breakdown, especially considering the circumstances. As producers continued to request the final shooting script, as they were just 4 days before commencement of filming, Baldoni worked hard with very limited time to rework the script and direction to meet Lively's demands, recognizing that they would be in a negotiation for what the final script looks like. Lively's demands continued to cause additional work and stress for the production team. I mean, I'm stressed out. Meanwhile, on the day before commencement of the second phase of filming, Lively casually reached out to Baldoni, together with Heath and the film's producers, to meet in her home. So is this the all hands on deck meeting? Come on over to my house. I'm making pasta. No, Lively's return to production demands required a meeting before filming resumed. Yeah, I thought this was all hands on deck meeting. On the day before filming, Baldoni, Heath, a Sony representative, the film's first assistant director, and 2 producers arrived with production binders in tow, excited to discuss details of resuming production. But Lively and her husband had a very different meeting in mind. So picture this, you guys. This is the Lifetime movie. This is like the big scene in the Lifetime movie, the return to work, all hands on deck meeting with Ryan Reynolds there. Lively brought Reynolds as her chosen representative. Notably, she did not request any attendees from her union, the Screen Actors Guild. Together, Reynolds and Lively blindsided the rest of the... I wonder if he wore his Deadpool outfit. The rest of the group with a list of grievances read aloud by Lively that were as troubling as they were fictional. Reynolds then launched into an aggressive tirade, berating Baldoni in what Baldoni later described as a traumatic encounter. Oh my God. He's going to be triggered every time he sees Ryan Reynolds from here on out. As Baldoni later said, he had never been spoken to like that in his life. And I wonder if he was doing that like Ryan Reynolds' fast-paced, like, snarky kind of way, like, look at you, all long hair, man bun kind of guy. Reynolds demanded that Baldoni apologize to Lively for actions that had either never happened or had been grossly mischaracterized. Okay, so this is where we have to question. I mean, is this a Gone Girl situation? I mean, is she lying to Reynolds as well, or is this Reynolds like completely aware of what they are trying to do, and he's a part of this as well? Baldoni resisted apologizing for things he had not done, further enraging Reynolds. Oh, God, please tell me somebody fucking taped this meeting. Like, wait, fuck, where's Brittany Bateman from Salt Lake City to fucking tape this illegally? Come on. Are you kidding me? Nobody taped this? I'm going to have a coronary. Everyone, including the producer, Lively, had asked the production to engage, and the Sony representative left the meeting in shock. The producer said that in his 40-year career, he had never seen anyone speak to someone like that in a meeting. The Sony representative said later that she often thought of the meeting, and her one regret was not intervening to stop Reynolds' tirade against Baldoni. Yeah, where were you on that one, dipshit? Baldoni and Heath left the meeting deeply unsettled by Lively and Reynolds' behavior and the power dynamics at play. It is that weird thing too, they're all actors, they've all done work, but I wonder in like the middle of getting yelled at by Ryan Reynolds, you're like, fuck, that's Ryan Reynolds. Holy shit. It's probably deeply unsettling. It was clear to them that this was the latest escalation in Lively's concerted campaign of extortion to extract concessions and creative control over the film, a campaign now apparently joined by Reynolds, nonetheless faced with persevering in the face of extortionate threats versus shutting down a film halfway through. Wayfair had virtually God, this, Baldoni keeps a journal. Do we have any of his journal entries that night? Wayfair had virtually no choice but to resume production and finish. How do you finish the film? Oh my God. But they're saying it still had a powerful message to deliver with this film. It's crucial to note that the list of grievances ambush were new, separate, and apart from the 17-point return to production demand. So there was a new list of grievances at this all hands on deck January 4th ambush, they're saying. And this was different than the 17-point return to work complaint. Though Lively's CRD complaint misleadingly suggests the parties agreed to a list of 30 items, many of the items listed on the CRD complaint were new, entirely based in lies, and neither read nor provided to any of the parties, let alone agreed to. This is why I was like, did nobody film or audio tape this meeting, especially legally? Why this is legal shit, especially if somebody's trying to, you're telling me that nobody at this meeting taped this. Come on. Nobody taped this. But this was entirely why I thought Lively was completely in the right, because I thought, if you're not lying about this. This is such a specific complaint. In my head, I was like, why go through the humiliation of even doing this for yourself alone to put this all out there if this isn't true? Anyways, as Lively admits, filming resumed the following day and then concluded without any further grievances or references to previous disputes by Lively. So they're like, hey, the filming went great after that. Now that Lively had unleashed Reynolds on I've unleashed Ryan Reynolds, they felt powerless to oppose the couple. Just as Lively had warned in April 2023, 9 months before, Reynolds would ensure that Lively's demands were met at every turn. From then on, Lively would get her way or else. Unmistakably, Lively would use her carefully constructed paper trail to destroy Wayfarer, Heath, Baldoni, and the film. So her carefully constructed paper trail, but it doesn't seem carefully constructed. It seems messy as fuck, because there is a paper trail that you guys have that you are unleashing on Lively. So this was not carefully constructed. How can you even say that when you have all of this proof, all of this evidence? This is not carefully constructed. This is sloppy as hell. You would have to, at some point, if you're Reynolds and Lively, realize how much communication you have had with this team. And that's confusing to me as well. Now, remember, we're going through Baldoni's complaint, and it is looking like Baldoni, wow, and Lively, boo. But remember, they're going to answer back. This story is far from over, and our opinions might change again. Who knows? I just want to throw that out there as we go through this. Remember, I'm telling myself this as well. So Lively completes her usurpation. I can't say usurping. Trying to take over power. Anyways, the Directors Guild of America requires a 10-week editing period for directors to privately edit and assemble their director's cut. This period is sacrosanct, as it gives the director uninterrupted time to creatively shape the final product, a time to experiment, to take risks, and refine until the film fully reflects their artistic vision. For Baldoni, this period is the peak experience of the filmmaking process, a time to immerse himself in the creative craft, free from external influences. But Lively denied Baldoni this experience on this powerful and deeply felt film. Lively requested through the producer Todd Black, that's the producer they brought on in the 17-point agreement, to join Baldoni in the editing bay. Oh my God, how awkward. As a seasoned professional with over 20 years of experience in TV and film, not to mention growing up in a family deeply involved in the industry, Lively knew full well the implications of her request. But in the aftermath of the serious and false allegations that she had leveled against Baldoni, Heath, Wayfair, and the production, and with pressure from Sony, they reluctantly agreed to grant her access to the editing bay for 2 days. Notably, despite the allegations that Baldoni made her uncomfortable, Lively insisted on working closely with him through this process. So this is from February 25th, 2024. Good morning, Blake. Redacted. And I had a great chat the other day, and he let me know you'd like to come in the edit before you leave for your film, and I think it's a great idea. So was she going to film A Simple Favor too? I agree that we work really well together, and with all you've put into this film, I completely understand wanting to give notes and have input before you leave for your other movie. At this point, you just say, but I am scared. I'm scared shitless of you and your husband. With that, I started my cut on Thursday, so tomorrow will be day 3. The movie is currently all over the place, and I need a few weeks to get it into some sort of shape to even present to you. What I would love to do is bring you in on the 18th and have us work together until you leave. Did I hear the first week of April? Then once you are in Italy, as things progress, you can jump in on any free days or even on days you have a long wait between scenes. I'm also happy to send you progress scenes with any big changes that are made, as we all know things change all the time during a cut. For me, the editing process is the time to try things and throw it all against the wall to see what sticks. It's my favorite part of the process. So once you take off, we can just keep you in the loop and send you the stuff to the extent you want to see it as we get closer to locking picture. Thanks! ! Blake writes back, hey, thank you for the note. I appreciate it. I'd love to be in the passenger seat with you as soon as possible. I don't need you to formally present anything. I understand you've just seen the first assembly and have a mountain ahead of you. I'll be invaluable to you and recall alone as you put together what you're looking for. I've also been rewatching all the dailies, tons of nuanced gems. The sooner we put our heads together, the better. Very excited to dive back into the work. Let me know. B. If it's already been this intense, how do you get... Anyways, Justin says, hey, Blake, I hear you, and I do know how helpful you have been and will continue to be. I do need some time to get sorted with my editors and wrap my head around the film itself. I will reach out to you at the end of the week to let you know the progress I have made so we can figure out the best time for you to start with me. Thank you. In February and March of 2024, Baldoni acceded to the request that Lively be let in on the editing process. And then we have text messages entitled The Dream Team. That's what Baldoni titled this group of editors. Editor number 1, hey, just checking in. Hope you're hanging in there. We're going to get through this, damn it. Justin Baldoni writes, thanks for checking in. I've sat with it, and I think the best path forward spiritually and what's best for the movie is that I suck it up and let her in. I've sent a message requesting that it start on the 18th, and then we would just let her in until she leaves, and then her cuts and updates throughout the process. I'll let you guys know what she says. Thanks for being awesome, Dream Team. Editor number 2, we got ya. Editor number 1, I think that sounds like a very good plan on all fronts. Justin says, side note, I offered for her to join on the 18th, and she replied she'd like to join now because she will be invaluable to me as she knows every take. I'm going to stick to the date and see how that goes and what comes next. And then did one of these shrug emojis. And editor number 1 goes, oi. And editor number 2 goes, stick to it. Editor number 1 says, when you get a moment, could I please get an ADR line from you for the karaoke scene? Anyways, that's just recording a line. Okay. This is more text with the editors talking about Blake coming in. For Blake, should I say 9:30 to 3 each day? And that gives you guys 3 hours for extra notes and other things. So they're being cooperative. But later in March 2024, Lively continued pushing for her demands that had been a 2-day collaboration extended into 10, and Lively sought to work alone in the editing bay without Baldoni. So that she said, this is weird too. Got like, no, Blake, I gotta be here. Like, so it, Though Baldoni incorporated 7 pages of her notes into this edit at the very start and consistently kept her involved in every subsequent edit, despite having absolutely no obligation to do so, Lively was not satisfied with merely collaborating with the director. She wanted to be the director and see her own creative vision for the film realized. So this is what they are alleging. This is their big thesis. She wanted to be the director. And listen, they've got a lot of evidence to that notion. But I am wondering at this point, since this wasn't a part of the 17 pages of demands, why they agreed in the first place at this point. Like, sorry, you're off the set, we're done filming. Why agree to this part of it? You know, we're done. We're done with physical shooting. You might have to do some ADR lines, but we're done with filming. The March 11th editor text messages. Justin says, we should all hop when we can tomorrow before she joins. Whatever works for you guys. I let her know we tested. Anyway, they're just talking about Blake has fresh eyes, so we can talk to her about things that came up from the screening. And then there's a one from the editor saying, FYI, Blake Lively started watching the movie at 8:30 a.m. today on the Pix. She did not watch it this weekend. So she didn't even do it over the weekend, like as weekend work, if they're in this edit. And so this is a bunch of just talks about editors and that they're trying to work around Blake and with Blake and include her on this. And it really does seem like they're bending over backwards for her. Baldoni in one text exchange on April 18th, 2024 says, and she's getting to edit, which is what she wants. Let's remember that. And the editor number 2 says, yes, and yet, ... And Baldoni writes, true, ! So this is stuff they're not putting in text messages, but obviously were conversations that they're putting, you can tell there's subtext here. Editor number 2 says, I don't want to give her any opportunity to say, well, because Redacted was in LA, we could only work certain hours, so I need more time. Is that a Taylor Swift? Was Taylor in town in LA on April 18th, 2024? Let's see here. I'm just making a guess. April 18th, 2024, Los Angeles. Oh. It is Taylor Swift. Holy shit. Did anybody, am I the first person to catch this? Probably somebody already caught this. But it's redacted in this, and this editor says, I don't want to give her any opportunity to say, well, because blank was in LA, we could only work certain hours, so I need more time, and I didn't really get it, needed, or whatever it may be. And I typed in Taylor Swift, April 18th, 2024, Los Angeles, and an AI overview on Google says, on April 18th, 2024, Taylor Swift had a listening party for her album, The Tortured Poets Department, at El Cid in Los Angeles. Oh, I've been to El Cid. So this was a listening party held. Wowzers. Goodness gracious. Wow. Okay. Justin writes back, point is, if you feel it's best and you want to go there, no problem at all. And also, if you would like to stay home, that's something that we can say. I just want you to do what's best for you. Editor number 2 says, I appreciate your protection and thought. I'm truly game for going if that's what she prefers. If she doesn't care, then save the money and have me work from home. Editor number 1 says, you're definitely nicer than I am. I would want to stay here to make it less convenient for her since she's going to be on a completely different time zone. Justin has bent over backwards for her for months on end, and I don't think you should have to do that too. Either way, you should do what's best for you, not her. Editor number 2 says, if it were Texas or some random place, I'd be much more resistant. I'm a New Yorker. Some of my best friends live there, so I love going to the city. Both Redacted are leaving town on trips this week as well, so it's not too complicated week for us. Justin Baldoni says, okay, all good. I'm sensing a desire to go and also have some you time, which is great. Win-win. I'll let them know. I think the game is to ask for virtual and then give in and send you. As a practice, we can't just keep giving her everything on exactly her terms. Editor number 2 says, like I said, happy to go. Also totally fine to stay. I can find the pros in either. So they're like, we'll send an editor to Blake. Blake, dude. As April 2024 approached, Lively gained approval rights over individual scenes. So you see Justin Baldoni with the editor saying, hey, that's going to end up being a Blake call, honestly. If you can get her to keep it in and it's in the movie, we can get it back in and it can stay in. She has approval of that scene. And the editor's like, even for the young Lily? And Justin's like, when she claimed she was unsafe, she redid the nudity rider to get approval of young Lily too. And the editor two's like, got it. Wow. Anyways, editor 2 on April 21st, they send to Blake, waiting for my plane. Blake is watching the cut tonight and we start around noon tomorrow. So they've sent an editor just for Blake. Oh my gosh. Finally, in April and May, Lively's extortionate threats coerced Sony to allow her to create her own cut of the film, a right that is exclusively reserved for directors, at Wayfair and Sony's expense. And despite Baldoni and Wayfair's rightful protests, Sony's reasons for acquiescing to these beyond unreasonable demands were clear. Sony told Wayfair in no uncertain terms that Lively refused to promote the film unless her demands were met. Wayfair, feeling increasingly cornered into agreeing to Lively's demands, attempted at least to require that Lively finally sign her engagement contract. So she still hasn't signed her contract. Even this basic ask was refused, and Sony urged Wayfair to give in. And we have this exchange from a Sony executive to Jamie Heath, the producer. Jamie and I have Redacted on here too. Redacted has gotten Blake to approve the trailer we want with our narration, the chair kick, the bruise, and Blake is calling Redacted to approve the song. That's Taylor Swift. She, of course, just reached out saying she is asking for time with Redacted, her editor. So that's Taylor's editor, right? We know it was conditional on signing contract, but asking if you will reconsider so Redacted can release this trailer and Blake does not change her mind regarding calling. So it's like, hey, Blake's threatening to not call Taylor if we don't give in. The executive number 2 says, you guys don't want to play ball. You are going to delay and greatly hurt the movie. Good luck. That is only if you want to make this date. We are going to need to push, finish director cut, and we can have multiple previews down the road. You guys don't want to play ball. You are going to delay and greatly. So the Sony people are like, to Wayfair, it sounds like, it reads like they're like, oh, great, you guys are going to fuck this up for us. We're not going to be able to make our launch date because you won't give in to every one of her demands. It's wild. Like, you know, I've read most of this before and then you reread it and you get like into just talking it out loud instead of just reading it. And it really is jaw dropping in some ways. Ugh. It's overwhelming how much information they have. Baldoni and the film's original editors were not even allowed to see Lively's cut, even if just to see how much of their work had been replaced. So there's more text messages with the editors. Just curious if you guys have peeked at her cut and if anything has changed, Baldoni asked them. Editor number 2, who's with her, says, I have just been told that we are not permitted to look. Peekaboo. And Justin Baldoni goes, haha, wow, when did that happen? Editor number 1 says, as per Sony. Editor number 2 says, this evening, through Redacted. Justin Baldoni says, wow, okay then. The editors and director isn't allowed to look at an actress's cut. Got it. Well, here we go, exclamation point. We will keep taking the high road. Ultimately, Lively replaced the film's editors with her own choice, an editor often used by Reynolds, and the film's editors had to be let go. She also replaced the film... Oh, so I said Taylor's editors earlier, but it's Reynolds' editors. She also replaced the film's award-winning composer with composers from Reynolds' recent project. Even though the film's composer had already finished the score with an orchestra, which is costly, Sony supported Lively's demands and even enforced her dictate that the film's director and editors not be permitted to even view the cut. Wow. Wayfair and Sony found themselves in the unprecedented and uncomfortable predicament of having two competing versions of the film. Now, I will say, like, listen, no matter, obviously, this case, if this had just, like, Wayfair was in such deep water and let things get off, like, I mean, obviously, Blake seems like she caused a lot of this, but really, for a newer production company, things went off so, like, I don't know if they had enough experience to deal with somebody like Blake, and it almost just seems like they just had a bunch of rookie moves, and then all of a sudden Sony turned against them as well. But now Lively was threatening to withhold promotion of the film, as well as her thinly veiled threat to end Baldoni's career with a slew of false accusations. That's what this is alleging. The studio reluctantly agreed to do an official audience test of both versions. We are now paying to test both of these versions. The decision was made on the understanding that Lively had agreed with Sony that if Baldoni's director's cut tested higher, she would drop the matter and fully cooperate so that Baldoni could finish the film without further interference. I also want to know, Baldoni and Lively at this point, how are they communicating? Tellingly, in a side-by-side comparison of audiences' tests, Baldoni's cut scored significantly higher with key audience demographics, right? So this is the dream team. The editor is sharing the metrics. And the editor number 2 says, "Here is my info. Quote, she lost. Can we now move forward? Thank you." Editor number 1. "The only group she went up with in the excellent category was men, and they are absolutely not our audience. And that's only because she focused more of the movie on herself, and men like to look at Blake Lively. Men are such pigs." So I'm guessing this is a female editor or just a man editor that realizes we are pigs. Not surprisingly, Lively reneged on her promise and insisted that her version be released to the public instead of Baldoni's cut as a direct. Did anybody ever get fucking Blake to agree to anything in writing? Holy shit! Instead of Baldoni's cut as director, even claiming that the book's author, Colleen Hoover, would refuse to promote the film, as well if Lively's version was not chosen. Ugh. Sony called to tell Wayfair. You know what? Sometimes it feels like too, and this is a Housewives thing, is when you can tell when, you know how Lisa Barlow completely just looks down on Whitney from Salt Lake City? Lisa Barlow makes fun of me and looks down on me. It almost seems like Blake Lively just looks down on Baldoni and everybody involved with him and treats them as such. But then potentially people like Colleen Hoover, who is very successful in her own right, she probably presents a very different version of herself, Blake Lively, to those people that she deeply respects and wants their approval, right? That's just a thought. Baldoni was forced to choose between killing the film and his own career by insisting on his own creative vision and rights, or putting out a version of the film that Baldoni knew could still be important to domestic violence survivors, even if it differed greatly from what it could have been. Release the Baldoni cut. Baldoni was essentially forced to fire himself as director and allow Lively to finish the film, knowing it was the only choice he could make to serve the greater good. 2 days later, Baldoni was hospitalized with a serious spine infection. Eventually, with the key demographic being the focus, Sony and Screen Engine, which is the audience testing company. Do you used to do that growing up? You would volunteer. I remember in Arizona, to volunteer to do these screenings, and it was like, oh, I get a peek at like an uncut film, and you'd fill out the audience cards. I always thought that was so cool. Convinced Lively to put back as much of Baldoni's edit as they possibly could. So how did they get her to do this? Like, who's the Lively whisperer? None of this was officially communicated to Baldoni, but yeah, he's in surgery. But whispers reached him that part of his cut made it back into the final release. Baldoni made sure to thank and apologize to his editors whom Lively had caused to be let go. This is to the editor team as well. Justin Baldoni says, "I'm so sorry. I love and adore you both and will fight for you and your recognition and sing your praises to the end. This will all work out. It's painful, but it will be okay. And we can rest knowing that we have created a beautiful work of art together. And yet, I'm so sorry." Well, let's not go too far with the beautiful work of art, but I get. And then he sends a pic of him in what looks like to be a hospital room. And I think his wife is kissing his forehead. Justin says, "Hope ADR went well, being admitted for 3 days for potential infection. So now you have a real reason to why I'm not doing ADR. I love and adore you both. Thanks for standing by me through all this." By the way, if they're letting Lively do it, Lively should be forced to do all the ADR. Like, fuck. Editor number 1 says, "Holy cow, feel better. We didn't want to bug you during all of this, but our secret source has let us know that the new version they are previewing tomorrow has a bunch of our version put back in. We just have to keep it quiet because we want to keep our back channel open. Feel better, get well soon. We love you. And all of this craziness, health, and movie is going to work out, damn it." And he says, "Appreciate you both so much." There's always leakers, by the way. Always. Another text, "Infection in my spine, pretty serious. Great doctors and caught it early. Redacted had a feeling. My body is done. Too much stress. Yeah, we'll be in hospital probably until Tuesday now. Then IV antibiotics via a PICC line for 6 weeks, which means can't travel. Regarding Garfield, so happy he liked it." Editor number 1, "Damn, then just take care of yourself. If Blake is so determined to handle the marketing on the movie, then just let her. Perfect time to look out for number 1. And then Baldoni has a selfie of him in the hospital room. Lively shamelessly removed Baldoni out of all posters, trailers, and other promotional materials. She continued to refuse to promote the film otherwise. Okay, I'm assuming we have documentation of this. That's important. Over Sony's objection, Lively insisted on screening her cut at Book Bonanza. This is Colleen Hoover's annual convention hosting authors and fans from the world, but Sony made it known to Wayfair that per Lively, Baldoni could not attend, notwithstanding the obvious promotional and PR risks. Lively appeared on a panel alongside Hoover and other cast members, icing out Baldoni from this critical event for his own film. He was not even allowed to review the final cut before it was shown to the world. This is from Jen Abel with the PR lady. Says, hi, Jamie just filled me in about BookCon. I know this is devastating and such a kick in the gut. It's petty and childish at this point. I'm just making sure you're okay. We will get through this. Eye on the prize. Her attending BookCon is a win for this film ultimately. And if she wants to drag her ass to Texas, then let her. You can be home with your family, which is important. Justin Baldoni responds, she kicked me out officially from the film now. She's finishing it all. I can't be involved. Music, sound, VFX, everything. I'll make it through somehow. Just need to feel it all. So, wow, yeah. So she takes this cut of the film and premieres it for Colleen Hoover's audience that are all excited there to support this film and leaves him out. And remember, 3 hours ago or 2.5 hours ago when we started reading the initial emails between Colleen Hoover and Justin Baldoni, right? And this is where we do probably need Colleen Hoover's opinion, which has got to be so annoying. She's like, fucking Hollywood. But it would be interesting to hear her version of events at this point. Anyways, there's more texts between the editors, June 14th, 2024. And remember, we're getting close to the August premiere date. The editor says, by the way, the picture was supposed to get locked this week. That's when the film gets locked. So they start printing the reels, all that. So it's done. Did that happen? Just curious what version is going out to the world with all of our names on it. Justin Baldoni writes, I'll watch soon. No idea regarding picture. Evidently, they are all at Book Bonanza. Hard. And editor number 1 says, oh boy. Justin Baldoni says, but second test didn't go any better. The over 35 audience went down and under stayed the same. I guess Sony asked for more changes to get it closer to our cut, but I haven't watched. They are showing it at Book Bonanza. Editor number 2 says, the whole movie? And Justin Baldoni says, yep, hers. Editor number 1 says, wow. Justin Baldoni says, was supposed to be ours, and then I was uninvited. Shrug emoji. Whole thing is pretty cruel and intense. Editor number 1, all caps, unfucking believable. Editor number 2, sorry, Justin. Justin says, I love you both. Editor number 1, heart emojis. Editor number 2, purple heart emojis. Editor number 1, I just hope you love for at least, I just hope you love for at least stomach, the cut that is going... I hope you love or at least stomach the cut that is going into the world. And he says, haven't seen it yet, so I can't yet. So, wow, that is wild. Despite his personal feelings, he redirected his thoughts to focus on the one positive. The film, years in the making, was very close to being seen by the world, even if it was no longer his film. He prayed for the possibility that the film could still make the impact he intended when he first reached out to Colleen Hoover in 2019. The editors are checking in with him on, this is in July 1st. Justin says, really been distancing myself from the movie as best as I can for my sanity. Lots of great internal work, finding real gratitude. Been some more hard things over the last few weeks that would blow your mind. We'll all catch up soon. Today, I have to give notes on the final mix. I have not seen the locked cut of the film. Evidently, it's been worked on more, and she's been mixing. I'm getting to give notes at the studio today. Not a director, very hard, but I'm okay. Really doing a lot of work to detach. We made a beautiful baby together. The baby might not grow up to exactly who we thought, but it's still beautiful. That's what I'm holding on to. Very proud of us. Editor number 1 says, wow, I can't say I'm shocked because I was hoping that you were going to be able to not let this beat you down, and it sounds like you have achieved that. And yes, the movie we handed her was so good that even if it had been screwed with, the base work will still shine through. The last I heard was that she was putting back a fair amount of our version, just not sure what that entailed or to what extent. I guess you'll find out today. Hang in there, and we'll all catch up when the wounds are not quite as fresh. Sending love to you both. September 8th to the editors. So this is after the film is premiered. He says, if you think about it, we didn't even finish our director's cut because she intervened. So ideally at some point we can take a week and all just do it together for ourselves. But that opens up a can of worms. So we will need to let this play out for a while before we can pull that card and your door will be knocked on. September 8th. October. Yeah, the movie premiered in August of 2024, right? Am I in the right year? What year? We're in 2024. Yeah, right? So this is September 8th, but the amount of women who feel seen, that it's reaching people all over the world so yeah, I think they're acknowledging that it's out and like, listen, this is still this great message that's out there. It's still working. Lively was still not satisfied. She continued to extort Wayfair, Baldoni, and even Sony, threatening to abandon her contractual obligation to promote the film or approve marketing materials if she wasn't awarded a producer credit. And though Wayfair had refused long ago to accede to this request when it was made during initial negotiations, Wayfair now had its back against the wall and again had to concede. This still wasn't enough. Lively later sought the coveted PGA mark on her producer's credit. This is the Producers Guild of America. Neither Baldoni nor Wayfarer believed Lively fulfilled the requisite criteria to earn this mark, but that did not matter to Lively. You know what I'm realizing? Well, first off, that we're only on page 91. Holy fucking balls. What I'm realizing is that I got into this story way too late. You guys probably already know this, and this is a waste of time. But it is interesting to go through this. So hopefully some of you are still with me. Damn. But what I'm thinking is, at this point, obviously we're going to get into the PR aspect of this when he was like, we've got to be prepared. But I also wonder if, and I don't know if this will ever be admitted, if Brian Friedman, the lawyer, was engaged much earlier than thought. Because if I was Baldoni, seeing how she had behaved, I would lawyer up. And I would start collecting all of the text messages, and I've done this before, where you're like, okay, in case, I'm going to collect all of these text messages, all of these voice memos, all of these things, and put them out in case I need them at a certain point. And I'm just wondering when Brian Friedman was officially engaged. And I think we might not know ever the real answer to that, but I would assume he might be on it, because if you're looking about just the amount of evidence put together in a short amount of time, yes, I know a lot of lawyers, they can do that very quickly, but at the same time, this is heavily researched. And I just wonder, after this film was out, and also I was wondering at some point, there's always leaks. So I was wondering at some point if somebody did tip Baldoni or Wayfarer off about the upcoming New York Times article. Even if they said they didn't know, maybe somebody tipped them off, and so they were more prepared than you would think. It's just a conspiracy. And by the way, full conspiracy theory there. I admit that. But anyways, they resisted this producers thing because Lively did not perform these duties. In response, Lively instructed Sony to tell Wayfarer and Baldoni that, quote, any goodwill left between us is done. You have upset my husband, Ryan Reynolds, again. No, says any goodwill left between us is done. By the way, dude, at this point, yeah, we know. Eventually, in the face of persistent threats and extortion, by the way, I hope instructed to Sony. Who instructed? We're going to need this evidence because these are like damning claims. So this, I'm already putting the case together in my head. We need this Sony representative to let us know that Blake said this. Eventually, in the face of persistent threats and extortion, Wayfarer and Baldoni were left with little choice but to draft and sign a letter of support on Lively's behalf, but not before Heath sent an email to Wayfarer's attorneys documenting that he and Baldoni were signing the letter under duress. And we have that letter saying we are signing it. We don't agree with this, but we are signing this. There is nothing to do with this letter now, Jamie writes. It only serves as a way to memorialize why the letter was sent in the first place, should we ever need to explain it. So they are saying, listen, this we don't agree with this. We're putting this in documentation. Wild. Dear Producers Guild of America, this is on June 26. We hope this letter finds you well. We are writing to inform you of the significant role and contributions that Blake Lively has played in the making of this film. This film has meant a great deal, both personally and to our company, Wayfarer Studios, blah, blah, blah. From the time Blake was brought on, she had an instrumental voice. Blake has been very involved in the post. Anyways, since contractually she began the movie with an EB credit, our earlier submission to the PGA did not include her name as a producer, but we both feel her contributions have warranted. So they both, Baldoni and Heath, are on this letter. So they're like, and they have a letter saying we don't agree with this letter that we wrote. And they sent this to the Producers Guild of America. Holy balls. As the premiere of the film approached, Lively made good on her promise and instructed Sony that she and the cast would not participate in any marketing or promotion of the film alongside Baldoni. In spite of Baldoni and Wayfarer's acquiescence to all her demands, she made certain that Baldoni was removed from all artwork and stripped him of his A Film By credit. Lively and Reynolds also unfollowed him on... This is where it gets really hurtful. Lively and Reynolds also unfollowed him on... You were still following him? Oh my God, as did Colleen Hoover, someone with whom Baldoni had maintained a 5-year personal relationship and for whom Baldoni created this opportunity. The other cast members also unfollowed Baldoni, creating the false impression that Baldoni had done something wrong. On information and belief, Lively induced the other cast members to shun Baldoni in an early attempt. We're going to have to call these actors to the stand. in an early attempt to give the fans the impression that Baldoni had committed an egregious sin, something so egregious that no one wanted to even take photos with him or have him around. Lively was leaving what she had earlier referred to as, quote, crumbs, a social media strategy she had learned from a close celebrity friend. I wonder who, to give fans just enough to allow them to come to their own conclusions, thereby launching an army of detectives that, on information and belief, Lively hoped would turn against Baldoni. The unfollowing of Baldoni by cast members and even the author of the book, who he had a long-standing relationship with, was done without warning or any communication from them, in stark contrast to the warm praise and appreciation cast members had until that point always showed on him. For example, Isabella Ferrer, cast as young Lily, exchanged grateful texts with Baldoni during and after her filming stint. And yeah, these are really nice text exchanges. So she seemed like very comfortable with Baldoni and really appreciated their work. Ferrer worked with Baldoni when Lively was not on the set. It was not until Ferrer spent substantial time with Lively during film promotions that Ferrer felt compelled to shun Baldoni. So even the kid shunned Baldoni. Okay, so this is really an important piece of the puzzle too. And it's very confusing for us, the audience, because you want to think that people would stand up for what is right. Right? That these actors knew this man as a director and potentially a good person. So it is important to get their side of the story. They don't want to be dragged into this, but like, yeah, what is Blake saying? There must be some version of Blake's story that is telling these actors. I mean, I know it's Blake and Ryan, and yes, they're very, Ryan's very powerful, blah, 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 Taylor Swift, blah, blah, blah. But still, they're people, and one of these people have to be like, what you're doing is fucking nuts. So part of me thinks, oh, come on, there has to be something more. Like, Baldoni must have creeped them out in some way. Because you just want to believe that all of these people wouldn't just succumb. But, I mean, history has shown us that sometimes people will succumb to a great lie. In fact, wow. It became clear that Lively was laying the groundwork to explain away her theft of the film and the exile of Baldoni. Presumably, she was concerned that her shocking conduct would be frowned upon if it became widely known. Baldoni had no intention of ever making this information public. In fact, as co-star of the film, both he and a studio who co-financed the film had spent millions of dollars, had every reason to want the film to succeed. I wonder how over budget they went. Any suggestion otherwise is illogical. Baldoni promoted the film as originally intended, gave Lively full credit and praise, and had done everything in his power at every painful turn of making this film with Lively to ensure the film succeeded. He wanted to move on. Lively, however, would not let it go. Baldoni later received word that during the premiere of his movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, Reynolds approached Baldoni's agency, namely an executive at WME, and expressed his deep disdain for Baldoni, suggesting the agency was working with a sexual predator. And at a later date, see, I'm wondering if Reynolds really bought into... See, this is the other thing. Like, so is this either a gigantic lie? Is it half of a lie? Did Blake lie to Reynolds? Are they both lying? Are they lying? Like, are they both? Or they really thought this happened? Like, it is so... To take it to these steps for... This is not carefully constructed. How would you be so messy as to be able to know that this would go into some sort of eventual lawsuit, unless you're just thinking that you can roll this person over? But they do know that Wayfair has billionaire backers, or a backer. And, to throw out the words like sexual predator, it seems like he really truly believes this. Also demanding that the agent drop Baldoni. His wielding of power and influence became undeniable. Baldoni and Wayfair grew increasingly fearful of what Lively and Reynolds were capable of, as their actions seemed aimed at destroying Baldoni's career and personal life. The pivotal moment terrified Baldoni and ultimately caused him to seek help anywhere he could to protect his reputation, his partners, his wife, children, and family from false accusations that could ruin their lives. Desperate, terrified, and in this position for the first time, he sought expert guidance and was advised to engage crisis PR to be ready in case Reynolds and Lively decided to unleash their wrath on them. As is customary, a proposal was prepared for him with available measures and quotes. So a lot of this part, or some of this part, was included in Baldoni's complaint. And we have, Jennifer Abel, we have Daily Mail headlines, and they actually have screenshots of Blake Lively's complaint. But also Jennifer Abel saying in these, like, damn, this is unfair because this is not me. Everything now looks like it's it's anyways, they're just saying like, oh my God, this is not even stuff we put out there, and it's taking off like wildfire. But also, this part of the amended complaint is saying that they cherry picked on Lively's complaint. So they included in their complaint Jen saying, we can't write it down to him. We can't write, we will destroy her. We will go to this. We will do this. We will do this. We will do this. So they included that in the complaint, but they excluded the next text from who this is to, saying, of course not. But I told him that's the point of talking through. Included in Blake's complaint, he has to look at it as information document for us to be armed with. That's all. Imagine if a document saying all the things that he wants ends up in the wrong hands. The work is not the document. The work is the fucking crisis, LOL. That was excluded. Also excluded was the response. If it's any consolation, he's like this with everything. Overthinks, stresses, high anxiety. Excluded. He just needs to be educated on how this process works. They excluded 2 sentences of this next one. You know we can bury anyone, but I can't write that to him. And they included... Oh, sorry. They left those 2 sentences in, but took out, I will, it'll be very tough. So they're just saying there's this pattern of cherry picking. And it is, it is interesting to see all of this laid out and all of the exchanges visually laid out. And it starts to become like geometry. Like they're like doing like diagonals and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because they left in things like the majority of socials are so pro-Justin, and I don't even agree with half of them, LOL. But they left out no requests, though. I think people are bored. And then they excluded, I'm just anxious per usual. LAT reached out to Justin's old assistant, and then the response, you're okay. It's been too much. Press too chaotic. I told you. People Magazine messaged me. Then they messaged me again to say they're getting radio silence on everything. Response, that was the request he sent through, nothing to me. And then redacted from Showbiz 411, called me, but I'm leaving. So this was all excluded. So these are all just examples of what Blake Lively's complaints kind of cherry picked to really make it seem more likely that this really was this PR strategy against Blake. Included texts like, he doesn't realize how lucky he is. Right now, we need to impress on him just how fucking lucky. The whispering in the ear, the sexual connotations, like Jesus fucking Christ, other members feeling uncomfortable watching it. I mean, there is just so much. And then they excluded, doesn't matter if it's not true. So that's a big one. That is a big one. So Jen is admitting these aren't true. It doesn't matter. It's not true. If that gets out, it's game over, right? But they didn't include the most important line, doesn't matter if it's not true. And then the response from the other person is, I know, I don't think they get that. They think the truth wins. And Jen Abel says, no, it doesn't. And then does a crying, laughing emoji. And then also excluded is a response. And I'm like, we are dealing with a psychopath who literally called you a sexual predator. Let's all be happy with difficult. Let's all be happy with, quote, difficult. And Jen says, I have it on text message, by the way. And the response says, unbelievable. But this is all excluded. Let's all be really happy with difficult. And he told him we took out misogynist. So this is stuff they got out of articles. Let's give it a day to calm, and let's call Jamie together tomorrow, and we can explain to him a few things together. And socials are really ramping up in his favor. She must be furious. So these are all excluded, but it's also saying we're dealing with a psychopath, and that psychopath is not Justin. All excluded. So then that does, with the Leslie Sloan of it all, and the this, the more it is just damning. I mean, over damning. Anyways, we have the Sony marketing plan, which we went over before. I think at the end of December, just talking about how they wanted this story, how you promote it. Do not talk about domestic violence. Avoid talking about the film being sad and heavy. It's a story of hope. Focus more on Lily's strength. Avoid talking about the film being representative of every woman's story. So this was per Sony in regards to the press tour. In fact, against much resistance from the film's distributor, Baldoni, from day one, made it clear that he was making this film to bring awareness to domestic violence and would not refrain from doing so when promoting the film. He did not go rogue, as Lively alleges. That's what she alleges, right? That's what I was even thinking of. Like, he saw that this wasn't working and he wanted to win the public's favor because all of this shit was coming out during the press tour. And you're like, that does kind of make sense. But we see in a text message Sunday, August 11th at 6:48 a.m. Good morning, team. So I was thinking about the response to this weekend, and I feel like what we should do is make sure to emphasize the voices of the survivors. It's going to be a lot of buzz about how much money the movie made, but I want to be the one that always direct it back to the survivors. So I'd love to come up with some sort of video or carousel of messages from survivors and the response to the film. Okay, that could go either way. I mean, I don't know. Anyways, now they bring up the Ryan Reynolds and the Nice Pool caricature of a woke feminist before concluding the character's arc with his violent shooting death at the hands of Lady Pool. Oh man, spoiler alert. A character voiced by Blake Lively. Upon information and belief, the Nice Pool scenes were added to the movie and filmed in January of 2024 after the January 4th confrontation in Reynolds and Lively's apartment and were intended to be a transparent and mocking portrayal of Reynolds' warped perception of Baldoni. Nice Pool commented inappropriately on a female's character's attractive body after childbirth and excused his remark by claiming he identified as a feminist. Nice Pool also made reference to an intimacy coordinator and even used a hairstyle that mirrored Baldoni's previously long hair. And then sorry, we gotta laugh sometimes. They put photos of Reynolds as Nice Pool and then Justin Baldoni with his man bun. Imagine pulling the images you're the guy that like they don't trust to write the complaint, but they're like, pull an image of Justin Baldoni with a man bun. This is further borne out by the fact that in the credits for It Ends With Us, Lively expressly thanked Gordon Reynolds, the false name that Reynolds used for his credit for portraying Nice Pool. Oh God, cringe, Blake. Oh, sneak. Ugh. And we see a photo of this and, yeah, so Nice Pool obviously is totally making fun of Justin Baldoni. Totally. I mean, I noticed that from the start, but I also thought, man, if I was Blake's husband and I thought this man was being so sexually aggressive with my wife, Ryan Reynolds is a smartass, and I would potentially take it out in that way as well and just be like, yeah, I'm monetizing off the female experience. Like that's what he did in the film. So to me, it was like, yeah, if you did that to somebody I love, I might take it out that way. Listen, I might take it out on the podcast, right? While in Sweden celebrating his wife's birthday, Baldoni was informed that Lively demanded he not attend the film's premiere on August 6th, 2024. Lively further threatened that if Baldoni attended the premiere, she and the majority of the cast would boycott. It remained unclear what Lively had communicated to or promised the cast, but they now also refuse to attend. See, we got to get the cast. We got to get one cast to break free. Who knows Jenny Slate? Come on. All we need is one. There's got to be a story going around. There's got to be a story that was presented to these people that they all fell in line. And by the way, the other actor, who's the dude? The guy that plays the other male lead, he is killing it in his career right now, and he is working on a film. Brandon Sklenar. He's working on a film with Sydney Sweeney, and he's supposed to be a really nice guy. I know some people that know him, and he was in full support of Blake and even reposted the complaint. Anyway, so they're saying, yeah, we didn't want him there. Just days before the film's premiere, Baldoni was still unsure if he would be allowed to attend. His friends and family, most traveling from outside New York, were left in limbo, unable to finalize travel plans or book flights. Baldoni did the best he could to hide his pain. Despite still not having seen the final cut of the movie he co-starred, co-financed, and directed, he wanted to celebrate the culmination of his years of work with his family and friends. We have a text message August 5th to the editor. Well, if you decide to change your mind last minute, let me know and let's figure it out together. I'm going to be there. That's just different timing and holding areas and theaters and all the things you can imagine. It's still our film. Editor number 2 says, it would be very hard for me to sit and watch the final film for the first time at the premiere. Just cheer for us when our names come up, sending all the love. And he says, okay, yeah, I haven't seen it either. Finally, through Sony, Wayfarer persuaded Lively to permit Baldoni and the Wayfarer team, along with their friends and family, to attend, though only under demeaning and humiliating conditions. They were relegated to a separate theater to view the film, required to arrive at a different time than the rest of the cast, and instructed to leave the red carpet immediately once Lively arrived. Baldoni was also excluded from the official celebrity after party, despite it being an event ultimately paid for by Sony and Wayfarer. As a result, Baldoni had to quickly organize and fund a separate after party for himself and the Wayfarer team, forcing the company to cover the cost for 2 events, one for Lively and everyone else, and one for Baldoni and Wayfarer's own friends, family, crew, and team. If they can prove all of this, I mean, it really is just cruel on top of cruel. Upon arrival, Baldoni began participating in red carpet photos and interviews, absent the presence of the remainder of the cast. It was conveyed that Lively was on her way, and he was instructed to stop immediately. He and his family were quickly ushered away, security personnel acting as though they were at a risk of escape, escorted Baldoni's group to the basement of the building. They were confined to a makeshift holding area surrounded by concession stand, stock with only fold-out tables and chairs arranged in a square, surrounded by close friends, family, soda bottles, and a lot of love. And I bet, by the way, they had like generic cola. You know, they had like Rite Aid cola. You know, like the sad they didn't have like name brand cola, I bet. Anyways, the irony of being held in a basement on what was arguably one of the most important nights of Baldoni's career thus far was not lost on anyone. Very gripping. And we get a photo of them in the basement surrounded by like popcorn bags and Baldoni with his hands up like, yay. And people are smiling, but it does seem to be around like some card tables, and you see some blackout curtains. And we see some photos of all the women dressed in nines, including Baldoni's wife, posing around these water bottles. Wait, do I know that one? Okay. Once the main theater was deemed clear of Lively and her guests, Baldoni and his group was ushered into a separate theater to view the film. At the conclusion of the screening, they were again quickly escorted out of the building by security to avoid even a chance of interaction with Lively or her guests. The Wayfarer after party, held separately from the celebrity event and attended by crew, family, and other Wayfarer friends, was a dry gathering, in part to acknowledge the known negative relationship between alcohol and domestic violence. It was attended by the entire Wayfarer team from Los Angeles and their friends and family. How did nobody from Wayfarer leak what a horrible person Blake was being? How did that not leak? If this whole Wayfarer team had to have been completely aware. Anyways, it said the atmosphere and tone of the party were aligned with Baldoni's vision for the film, focusing on celebration and gratitude despite being humiliated. In the meantime, Baldoni was sidelined as Lively and Sony pressed forward with their promotional strategy for the film. By contrast, Baldoni's marketing plan outlined in his initial proposal to Sony years prior, shared with Lively and communicated numerous times to both Sony and Lively, centered on a partnership with the organization No More, which we covered 5 hours ago, wanting to focus on the message. So then they finally asked the important question, but why would Lively even seek to seize power over the film? Why would she insist on taking on additional work for no additional pay or credit? On information and belief, Lively may have been motivated by a number of factors. She may have wanted to seize control over the film so that she could take over the production of the sequel, It Starts With Us. This motivation also explains why the cast, who may have hoped and or been promised a role in subsequent productions, would choose to side with a powerful couple who themselves may genuinely believe they could destroy Baldoni and Wayfarer and force them to cede or even sell the rights to the sequel. I mean, yeah, maybe at that point, these rights are worth nothing now, and you wouldn't want to be in this film now, but at the same time, can we all just say, I think they promoted it very well to make it a hit, but it wasn't. Also, I'm a dude, so but I didn't think it was that great of a film. No offense. It was a film, and that's such a huge feat to get a film made, obviously, especially in this case. But I just didn't think it was. I was like, okay, cool, yeah, So that's one. They're saying that's some motivation right there. Or Lively may have felt driven to match her star husband, Ryan Reynolds, who is widely reported to have insisted on taking so much control over the film Deadpool 2 that director Tim Miller left the production. This is true. Seeing the fame and success that Reynolds commanded, she may have adopted, and by the way, it worked for Reynolds. Deadpool 2, huge hit. The Deadpool, by the way, if you go into the Reynolds story of getting Deadpool made in the first place, he had to really fight for that. They had to do this sizzle reel. They leaked the sizzle reel. It got this huge response online. So Reynolds has done some things, gambled on himself and projects, and it really has paid off for him, especially with the Deadpool character, right? And this was him really going around people's back to make things happen, and it worked. Seeing the fame and success that Reynolds commanded, she may have adopted his patterns wholesale to seize her own power and control, following his lead and evidenced by many statements by Lively that he's involved in every project she works on and vice versa. Lively and Reynolds, accustomed to getting their way, perhaps felt entitled. Regardless of why Lively insisted on seizing control of the film, that is precisely what she did. There can be no justification for her Machiavellian and civilly extortionate, they love the word extortionate, tactics deployed to grab complete control of the film. In the end, though, Lively's own words and promotional strategy led to an avalanche of negative press. Starting at least July 10th, 2024, Lively's social media posts promoting the film maintained a lighthearted, frothy attitude. But also, that was per Sony, so you could also blame Sony on that. Depicting Lively in glamorous and floral-inspired couture, highlighting high-end brands like Chanel and Christian Louboutin. And we see photos of Lively in these flowery dresses, Instagram posts, done up rings, nothing about the deep message of this movie, right? Lively freely interspersed posts about her new movie with ads for her new hair care line, Blake Brown. Upon information and belief, the launch of Blake Brown was timed to coincide with the film's release in the hopes that the cross-promotional opportunities would boost sales for Lively's new brand. We have Instagram stills of Blake Brown Instagram posts. Lively also sprinkled in cross promotions with her alcohol brand, Betty Booze. See, it's like I said, I think at some point, maybe at the beginning of this or some other podcast this past week, it's not enough just to be an actor anymore. You gotta be a triple threat. You gotta be doing everything. You gotta be monetizing. You gotta be doing makeup brands. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. It is gotten insane. It's not enough just to be an actor anymore. You gotta be an actor that's potentially gonna be worth $1 billion like Selena Gomez. So we have all of these pictures of these Instagram, moments. Tellingly, Wayfarer spotted the issues and called for a course correction long before Lively apparently realized the magnitude of her miscalculation. Wayfarer CEO Jamie Heath responded to the organic online criticism. So they're saying it's organic. Nothing, there's no PR, smear campaign. It was organic. He noted that many people are pointing out that domestic violence is being glossed over and that Justin is essentially the only one appreciating the subject matter, whilst others may not be giving it the proper respect it deserves. As you know, this has always been a concern of ours. So he was raising the alarm bells that what Blake was doing was not working in terms of promoting. It was doing the opposite and potentially being disrespectful. Okay. Listen, I also want to say at this point, if these documents prove to be correct, it is so overwhelmingly damning, but I am going to try to reserve saying anything extremely horrible about Blake Lively, even though I think that there is a strong urge to do so, and probably by a lot of people, but I'm going to reserve my most damning words for after her next double down happens. I want to give her, not that I'm the one adjudicating this, but I want to see what they come up with, because I don't know how you ever argue it at this point. But there are a lot of things that I want to say and about how damaging this is to women overall, to this man's career overall. And I could use a lot of really big, choice, horrible words, but I will save that to see what, I will say now, just from covering from the beginning with Blake and having one feeling, and now reading all of this and having another feeling that, now who knows what's going to come up next. So we're just, and we've been doing this now for over 3.5 hours talking about this information presented. Anyways, they, Jamie Heath puts out, this letter saying this is, no matter this Justin and Blake feuding, this is still really concerning how this is being presented. We are opening with great numbers, and that is a testament to the movie itself and also the way you positioned it, no doubt. And we should listen to the responses and really embrace what we are hearing. This is to Sony. It won't hurt the movie by being more deliberate in embracing the DV aspect. People need to know that we too recognize the gravity and sensitivities of this subject. And then, he was like sharing Blake's posts. It ends with us movies Instagram, which is collaboration on an Instagram with Sony Pictures, says, grab your friends, wear your florals, surfs up. Like, that is really horrible. Like, that is, I mean, it was said so, people thought it was kind of mortifying at the time. So Heath and other at Wayfarer advised listening and responding to the wave of online criticism that had met the bubbly, sunny messaging that Lively herself embraced. So it's funny, she embraced Sony's marketing plan, but wouldn't embrace anything else when it came to Justin. Though Lively now claims that Heath, Baldoni, and others at Wayfarer sabotaged her by planting astroturfed media criticisms, that's when it's just this widespread thing, just getting everybody to jump on the fire that you started. It seems that if she had listened to and respected the Wayfarer party's perspective and insights on the sensitivities of marketing the film, rather than seizing the helm and then driving the ship around, everything would still be coming up roses for her. Do you see how they use the flower thing? Roses? Nice. Had she allowed Baldoni to take his rightful place side by side with her in the promotion of the film, Baldoni would assuredly have kept domestic violence in the spotlight during all promotions, which would assuredly have prevented her from hurting her own image. Lively's reputational backlash was entirely her own doing. Maybe she has watched way too much Game of Thrones. There's another email to Sony from Jamie. To be clear, we are not saying it's been inappropriately marketed in any way. In fact, you have all been brilliant. Thank you. Extremely honored to be partners with you. This is Sony. It's been fantastic. The proof is in the pudding. It's not been fantastic, Jamie. It just shows how much we all lie to each other. This post is only pointing to the ones who have spoke about the marketing. And while I am not dissuaded by their commentary, it's good to take some learnings from it. But once the backlash started on social media without any effort by Lively to course correct and entirely without any involvement or effort by Baldoni, it rapidly spread to mainstream media. And this is where we get like a BuzzFeed article and a Daily Mail article kind of talking about Blake Lively being tone deaf and shallow in her interviews. Headlines like, people are disgusted by Blake Lively's cutesy press tour, for it ends with us. This is what happens, Blake. This is what happens when you are the star of the film. You are now responsible for you are the face. You wanted this, and this is what you are getting. And remember, I was talking to Rebecca about this, and she was reminding me is that Blake, the movie, is supposed to be the star in this particular case. This isn't Barbie. This isn't Margot Robbie. This is It Ends With Us, right? Blake Lively is a medium-sized star around other big stars with a hot property, because that book was very successful. But the picture is the star in this case. This is not Margot Robbie. This is not Angelina Jolie from 15 years ago. This is not Julia Roberts from 25 years ago. You know, it's very different. But these are just headlines after headlines. Fans are not impressed with Blake Lively's press tour. The Ends With Us promo has failed domestic violence survivors like me from Glamour magazine. Blake Lively's It Ends With Us promotion called disrespectful by some survivors of abuse. That's from NBC. So this is just damning. Indeed, while Baldoni sought to focus on the film's central premise, Lively incensed audiences with seemingly flippant and thoughtless remarks encouraging viewers to grab your friends and wear your florals. Lively then seeks to push the blame onto the Wayfarer parties. Upon information and belief, Lively ordered her team to begin a campaign to frame herself as a martyr and pin the blame on the Wayfarer parties. Behind the scenes, Lively's publicist, Leslie Sloan, devised and executed a smear campaign of her own against Baldoni. Known for her tendency to leak sensitive stories to provoke public controversy, Sloan reneged on an agreement with Nathan by continuing to disseminate false and defamatory stories about Baldoni and Wayfarer, a process she has begun long before Wayfarer and Baldoni ever retained Nathan. At 10:11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on August 8th, 2024, Nathan and Sloan reached an agreement whereby neither would communicate directly with the reporter prior to informing the other. Nathan states, quote, "I am not doing one thing without speaking to you," which Sloan responded, "Me either." We see that text message. Leslie saying, "I am not answering one email about the situation. I've told everyone to not do one thing, plant, seed, even speak to one reporter, even on background. Now I am involved. There will be no shock surprises to you." But she's acknowledging these are PR tactics that are used. So just 9 minutes later, Sloan breached her agreement with Nathan in this text by engaging with a reporter at the Daily Mail. Good old Daily Mail. The reporter asked to speak with Sloan regarding problems on the set involving Blake and Justin and the fallout over that, with Blake being labeled difficult and a power struggling existing. Sloan, without consulting Nathan, promptly responded, "That is 1000% untrue." And further, quote, "Your info is totally off." It is evident that Sloan never intended to honor her agreement with Nathan. Instead, she exploited the arrangement to gain a strategic advantage in the media. Yeah, but you could also say this was a very simple batting away a story of my client's not difficult, even though it appears she is. We have this text message exchange between Leslie Sloan and the Daily Mail reporter saying what we just said. In fact, Sloan actively continues her discussions with the Daily Mail reporter, seeding false information to cast Baldoni in a negative light. To divert attention from Lively's tyrannical behavior on set, Sloan attempted to portray Baldoni as the antagonist, stating, "The whole cast doesn't like Justin, nothing to do with Blake." She doubled down, insisting, "I'm telling you, she's a liar. They are panicking as the whole cast hates him." Sloan also threatened the reporter, saying, "The entire case I will have go on the record. This needs to be told." So, yeah, she is... Wow. So this is from the Daily Mail reporter that gave access to this lawsuit to the lawyers, where Leslie's like, "I'm telling you, she's a liar. They are panicking as the whole cast hates him. I promise she is lying." Not Blake Lively, but I believe Jen Abel, the other PR person. "I promise she's lying. This will not look good for your site. The entire cast I will have go on record." Daily Mail reporter, "Can you give me anything at all what the issue is then if it's not her and it's him?" And she says, "No, I'm in a plane and this needs to hold." So she was, definitely going against everything. Wow. Despite their agreement, Nathan was completely unaware that Sloan had provided the reporter with information that significantly altered the narrative of the published story. Indeed, the reporter originally sought to publish a story about Blake being labeled difficult on set. After the reporter's discussion with Sloan, however, the story changed to, "We have learned that Justin Baldoni caused issues on the set. Not only did Sloan breach her agreement with Nathan, but she planted false and defamatory information about Baldoni to distract from Lively's numerous missteps and throw Wayfair and Baldoni on the defensive." So this is just going back saying that Sloan, Lively's publicist, was just, talking mad shit and not honoring her word to the other publicist on the other side. Huh. Ugh. Okay, folks, this is where we're going to start to wrap up for the night. I think... By the way, you've probably heard this told and probably heard these exact words from so many people at this point. So who knows if you are even listening or still here with me. For the 5 or 10 people that still are, I don't think you probably enjoyed this, but it is very revelatory in terms of certain aspects of the film industry, but also certain aspects of ego and stardom and all of this stuff. So there are like 75 pages left of this actual amended complaint, and it really goes into, and maybe we'll do another episode if you actually are interested. I can't imagine you are at this point, but it really goes into, after this movie was released, this PR campaign that we read from Blake Lively's standpoint. But like I said, they're cherry picking, but you're seeing all of these with all the different PR people, and this leading all the way up to the New York Times article. The New York Times article, which was released late December, right? That kicked this next phase of it off, which, by the way, then the people in that, like Stephanie Jones, I believe, one of the PR people, people in that article on Baldoni were getting death threats, and they have those included as well. But the New York Times, basically, this is when they start having a starring turn in this complaint, just saying they released this without giving any proper time to respond to any of these allegations. And they could have responded very clearly, but they were not interested in the supposed truth. So the New York Times is going to have to answer for a lot in this case. Now, at the end of the day, you're like, "Oh, this is just Hollywood. This is just bullshit. It's not real life." In a sense, you could be correct. It's not something like, listen, we have spent 3 hours and 42 minutes when I should have spent that time donating something or helping the world in some way. If we had focused this much on, there are just a lot of better things that we could probably all be doing, I would imagine. But it does show how dangerous power is. And especially if it's unchecked power. If you just let somebody come in and just totally take over, bad things can happen. And usually it will get found out down the line, but sometimes that can be a long, painful process for everybody involved. Now, of course, like I said, there will be an answer to this. Lively's team, as we started this episode 3.5 hours ago, they were in court today saying there is a lot more to come. But I just can't imagine what it is at this point. What else what other text messages are we not seeing? What other things are we like? I just can't imagine at this point. But listen, I could be wrong. There could be a wealth of evidence that she is not presented. Her team is not presented. We will see. But my mind's racing because I'm really thinking, did she lie to Ryan Reynolds, or he was fully aware? And was she just like, fuck it, this is all about power? This is all about power and stardom. And this is one of my chances to be a big star again, or a big, is this my chance? Even though she's had a lot of chances and she had a pretty decent career. Like, this isn't somebody that was struggling, but maybe not as big as Ryan or Taylor. So the rest of that complaint goes into all of that, which is fascinating from a PR perspective and just how things move and how things, what we see in life is usually by design. What you post on your Instagram is by your own design. You usually show people what you want them to see. So this is just on a much more grand scale. So there is a whole nother 168 page timeline of events with just every email, every text exchange, things that were in this amended complaint and things that were left out of this amended complaint. But I will leave you tonight with one little exchange that we did not get to read, and it is between Justin Baldoni and Ryan Reynolds. And Justin Baldoni very kindly provided us with screenshots of this interaction. So I will read those to you. It's a little blurry, so hopefully I'll be able to read this with my old eyes. This is Justin Baldoni to Ryan. Hey, Ryan. I'm going to pretend he's talking to me. Hey, Ryan. Justin Baldoni here, the guy who brought his baggage to his meeting with your wife. I asked Blake for your number well over a month ago. Wait, I got to find a clearer copy of this. Thank you to the Daily Mail for having a clearer copy of this text exchange than the website did. But here it is. Hey, Ryan, Justin Baldoni here, the guy who brought his literal baggage to his meeting with your wife. I asked Blake for your number well over a month ago, and I've wanted to text you for a while now, but my good old nerves got the best of me. Wow, he gave up that power in that first text, my good old nerves, because you're a big star. Emily and I have a very small circle. That's his wife. We've known all our closest friends for years, and I don't really have any close female friends that my wife isn't also friends with, let alone married ones. And so I guess this is just an awkward text to say, I'd like to be friends. And then in parentheses, I'm glad there's no checkbox, yes or no. Blake also sent the sweetest message to my wife, unprompted, saying something similar, which just made me respect her and your union even more. I've been a supporter and admirer from afar of both of yours for years. You are in a class of your own, and I so appreciate the way you move. I bet he doesn't really appreciate the way he moves anymore. Anyways. Your support for her during this movie meant the world to me. Blake told me that one of the reasons, because the Daily Mail didn't provide the full unedited text exchanges between the two, Ryan Reynolds, but they're really good. But it is just so damn blurry in this. Man, these are long. Anyways, sorry, this goes on and on, but then Ryan Reynolds writes back, hey, Justin, sorry for the delay. I've been in a writing cave and the girls are sick again. I'm told they have an immune system, but it's in beta testing. Classic Ryan Reynolds joke. What a loving and generous message. Thank you. We're both looking forward to getting to know you and your family better. We're also big fans over here since before we met and more so after. You've been a wonderful collaborator with B, and that means a great deal to both of us. Being a stand-up person is everything, and you've been just that since day one. Thank you. You've hit the jackpot with B. She literally passes on every film and every filmmaker all the time, but one thing I know, and I speak from a deep wellspring of experience here, having her in your court behind the scenes as a creative is invaluable. I'm certain Redacted would say the same, which I think is Taylor Swift. Some of the greatest creative decisions I've made are in fact Blake's. The same goes for Redacted. The Acted is a small piece of a pretty astounding patchwork quilt of creativity. Well, it's Deadpool. More than anything, I rely on her taste. Far beyond movies, I rely on her taste on all aspects of my businesses. That multidimensional creative output is something I can see in both of you. I'm excited for you to work together. I'm excited for Blake to crack open her creative piggy bank with someone as dynamic as you. This is going to be incredible. And thank you for understanding what it means to me personally to have my family reunited as soon as possible. Nothing means more to her either. I can promise you we're hardwired for keeping our family together. It's how to win us and also how to kill us when we can't. We never split up. Ever. It was a huge thing for us on this film. I tried to push our start date, but Marvel booked studios last July and redacted timing wise. So I've been frantically smashing out my third pass of the script to address structural changes, but mostly to get our budget down and shorten the shoot so I can fly back when the girls start school. We see and appreciate that you already moved significantly to make it work with her schedule because of the film she'd already committed to, which thankfully she was able to gracefully punt. She tried before, but didn't share how hard. All this to say, I'd have your line producer's face tattooed to my perineum if he, she, they can figure out how to start 2 weeks earlier. Completely understand how big of an ass this is, but the perineum is one of the most nervy parts of it. Sorry. This does sound like a Deadpool line. The perineum is one of the most nervy parts of the human body to expose to trauma. So looking forward to seeing you and thanking you again after all you're doing. So he's being really nice, but he's also saying, can you push 2 more weeks, or can you start 2 weeks earlier? Looking forward to seeing you and thanks you again for all you're doing. I happen to adore you, Justin XO. So there's a nice little back and forth. The Ryan text message, I'm trying to make out parts of it that it's so blurry. It was by far the most meaningful person I've ever met someone want to work with me. I hope my texts haven't been too annoying. I mean, Ryan does sometimes come off like just, I don't know, a little like me. I don't know. You can just tell the neediness, the needing for approval. But these are big stars. This is how you treat sometimes big stars. So anyways, that, I'll leave you with that tonight. It's never going to end. So I think, I'll go through those timeline of events and see if there's other things. There's going to be other things, but I just needed to get, this is why this has turned out to be 4 hours. But I also don't want it to be my show every day. So I'll just put this out as one gigantic effing episode, and you can all curse me when you see it in the morning. Nobody's going to even listen to this last part. So I could literally put in my ATM pin code and it will never be discovered if I put it right here at this mark. I'll just say it. I'll just say it. 4323. There it is. There, you've got my ATM pin code, 4323. Nobody will ever hear this part. No, I could literally say anything right now, and I am assured that nobody will ever hear this, ever. I've had an upset stomach all day. I've been going to the bathroom a lot today. I'll say that too. Nobody will hear it. Yeah. Also, I think I'm getting man boobs. I think I have man boobs, and that's another thing I'll say. I don't think you'll hear it, so I'm good. I hate how big my legs are. That's something I'm insecure about. I'm just going to, at this point, I could literally say anything and it's almost assured that nobody will listen to it. Anyways, for anybody that is still listening, thank you for being here. I'm glad we got through most of this. I don't know. Let me know if you want to hear the rest of that PR stuff, but we got through pre-production, production, post-production, and the launch of the movie. The rest was leading up to the New York Times. It is fascinating. But I'm waiting to see where Blake goes with this. So I'm glad we got this out. Okay, you guys, have a great Wednesday. Have a great Tuesday. It's Monday night. All right. Oh, it's never going to end. What a mess. I mean, but think about it, dude. What is, like, Ryan Reynolds built this career. I mean, he really, just talk about just bad. I mean, and Taylor Swift, like, it's bad. Like, this is bad. Like, Blake Lively ain't bringing her to the Super Bowl on Sunday. And by the way, I would just expect, the sister to the Traveling Pants co-stars, remember they all did that group post that we talked about in December? There was so much support for Blake Lively. I do hope that, by the way, this is such a big ask for anybody to read fucking 400 pages of material, but I hope one of the sister of the Traveling Pants ladies reads all of it, and not just in some TikTok format video. I hope they read all of it and then explain it to their co-stars. And really see, like, oh shit, this is a little different than how it was positioned to us. But I think it's also sort of believable to other actors and stuff like that, because this is an industry that is built on mistreatment in a lot of ways. So many people have been mistreated. I've been mistreated on a set before. Not in a sexual manner, but just, I mean, just like it's a cold, unfeeling town sometimes. And I think with those actors, I'm not making excuses for them, but like they've probably had experiences that are like, fuck, I've been there. And you take somebody's word for it. Anyways, have a good night. Dude, what? Okay, bye.